Hello, everyone, and let me check to make sure that we are connected and everything works fine. So, if you join this session, welcome to Online Speaker LATAM session. And if you can hear and see the slides, please give a thumbs up or put a you know um, put some type of indication that you can see. So first of all, greetings everyone and welcome to today's session. Everyone. Okay, greetings everyone. Welcome for today's session. Today there would be actually 4 sessions in total, as you may know. And First session actually will start. Let me make sure that I'm sharing the correct windows the entire session. So let me know if you see by putting anything, putting your reactions on the chat so that you can see the screen and the sharing. Once you see that, we'll start from there. Just checking it here. I see there are a number of people have joined, and of course there's a delay in broadcasting this session. So let me know in the chat if you see me, and you can see the banner of the session. Okay, looks like banner of the session is there. It's appearing, and welcome everyone. So today actually we'll have very interesting sessions. There would be 3 sessions, and the first one that will start is going to be the session about Microsoft Azure Bicep versioning and what to expect. And but before doing that, I want to say thank you to everyone who is joining this session, and as well as to the organizers who are you know uh, made this session available. And I'm going to moderate today's session, and as well as I'm going to be your speaker. My name is Elkhan and I'm a cloud marathoner. So to follow from a little bit introduction about myself is displayed here on the screen. And I have been an MCT since 2007 and had good opportunities to practice with Microsoft Azure. I'm a Microsoft MVP and very honored for being rewarded and recognized by Microsoft for my contributions to the tech community. As you see, there's a link to the blog post called Cloud Marathoner. I'm a founder and I also started the hashtag on LinkedIn, Cloud Marathoner, which has the main purpose of sharing the cloud and Microsoft Azure journey roadmap and steps focused toward building automation and helping newcomers. My blog do encourage everyone to share useful tips and bits in the cloud journey and help beginners to succeed. I'm also an active core member of the Cloud Launch and Learn team, where we have weekly sessions, and you're more than welcome to join them. And I'm also actively participate at Cloud Family events. I think that's enough about myself. You can reach me on social channels. Is my Twitter X handle. It's called X now, but you can say Twitter X, and as well as LinkedIn social channels. Uh, if you are watching this session later on or now, please put few words about yourself. I would be happy to get to know the audience and you. Now, I have Pratap here. Looking forward to the existing session. Okay, great, Pratap. Great having you here. If you see anything goes wrong during this live session, just ping and put your comments. Thank you. So next, I want to just briefly go through 2 Bicep videos that I have created, and they are on the LinkedIn platform, as you see on the screen. They are all about Azure Bicep. First one is Azure Bicep First Look. if you never did anything on Azure Bicep, that would help you. And the second one is building infrastructure as a code with Azure Bicep Part 1, which goes in more details if you are embraced and you want to build your infrastructure as a code using the Azure Bicep. So in terms of those trainings, I'm going to share the on a web page. These are the trainings. And if you have access to LinkedIn platform, you can always go and type here Azure Bicep on top and look at complete courses. That would also help you to find the resources that you need for video learning. But let's say you don't have video learning, what to do? I'm going to cover that one as well. We also have community build resources that you can look and use as a reference. Next, let's look into what we are going to cover in today's session. Okay, so first we will start with express introduction into Azure Bicep, and that will follow up by latest developments on Azure Bicep, meaning that for the last 2 to 3 months, there were a number of new features added. So I'm going to show them, and some of them I'm going to actually experiment with you because they are still on experimental stage, and you can look what's the difference there, as well as we will look into next release of Azure Bicep that has been announced by Microsoft team, so you can get some insights into what to expect uh, in near future. And by near future I mean like next 2 or 3 months. Then we will look into some experimental code extensions that you can enable on Visual Studio Code while working with Bicep. And finally, while working and talking about Azure Bicep, I'm going to show you demos so that you can get a better grasp on the features and as well as how you can use them more freely. All right, I hope that's interesting enough to keep you entertained for the next probably 30 to 40 minutes. And let's kick it start. So as promised, first we will start with the intro into Azure Bicep. But in a meanwhile, if you have any question, again, I strongly encourage everyone to use the chat. And I need to drop there some links. Let me drop the link of the page that I just showed you. These are the courses. Uh, Bicep courses. These are the video courses that you may check out. I will also bring some QCR codes at the end of the session so that you can use them as well. All right, so let's kick started. First of all, express intro into Azure Bicep. So what it is, mainly it is a domain specific language, right? That's where DSL comes. And what it stands for is that Azure Bicep is specifically built to help you with infrastructure as a code on a Microsoft Azure environment. So if you have some plans to use your infrastructure as a code in different cloud platforms, Azure Bicep is not intended to do that, meaning that you would have to look at some other tools. There are frameworks like Pulumi, then well-known Terraform. You may look at them as alternative. Then for Azure Bicep, the main purpose is to simplify the authoring and managing Azure resources in a way that it's much simpler and intuitive. And that what I think the Microsoft team did great job in doing that. And in addition to that, this new language aims to make it easier for creation of those infrastructure as a code um, and then for developers and as well as for the DevOps and platform engineers that typically create those ARM templates targeting the Azure Resource Manager layer, Azure API. So you may not be, maybe you are not that familiar with Azure Resource Manager layer, but that's not a problem. I'm going to show you that on the next slide. But before going there, I want to also mention that Azure Bicep, you can think about this new language as a transparent abstraction over ARM, meaning that it's a simplified way defining resources, but it is still using ARM Azure Resource Manager under the hood when it compiles and then deploys the code for resource management. And but you cannot say that ARM is an infrastructure as a code because it is not defined as a code. It's a JSON representation of the declared resources. While with Azure Bicep, you can tell that it is mimicking the infrastructure as a code because it feels like a code. that you can manage and write. But the main idea with Azure Bicep code is that you want to declare state of your Azure resources in a way that once it is deployed completely, that's going to be the settings and configuration, how it's going to run. That's the main idea. Now, in terms of ARM template, the one that I just mentioned, ARM templates are JSON representation, and I will show you in the Visual Studio Code how it looks like if you never touched that. It's a JSON representation of Azure resources. And with Azure Bicep, what happens that you create your Azure Bicep file, it get compiled or transpiled into Azure ARM, and then it through Azure Resource Manager, that's the layer where it meets, it's going to deploy and modify underlying Azure resources in your environment. Of course, you can do the similar thing with different tools, and as well as you can use directly the you know RESTless API and where you can manipulate your Azure resources. But of course, you would have to authenticate first, and using the APIs is great, but it is much steeper learning curve, and it may not be as much fun as developing on Azure Bicep. All right, that's it. In terms of Azure Bicep language benefits, there are many of them as they are listed here. I'll just mention a couple ones that I find very very helpful, and one of them is day zero support. And what it means is actually that when you are using the Azure Bicep, you don't have to wait for any updates on the Bicep framework because it's utilizing the APIs of Azure Resource Manager directly. And whenever there's a new feature or update on existing resource, it's going to be available to you on Azure Bicep right away. You wouldn't have to wait for any updates. Then it comes with very good tooling on Visual Studio, especially the Bicep extension that I'm going to demonstrate. It allows you to make and create the clean code, and you can maintain them through with different reusability mechanisms. One of them that's widely used on Azure Bicep is modules, and it has a great integration with Azure. It comes with pre-flight validation. It doesn't require any state management, meaning that you don't have to create a state management file and maintain it like you have to do that with Terraform. And it comes with official production support. So if you get into any issues while using the Azure Bicep, you have the ways to resolve that by opening a ticket for your production and then getting that resolved. Uh, so that's pretty much it for some of the main benefits. Of course, there are some more, but these are the ones that are standing out. So in terms of, let's say you are convinced that you want to use your Azure Bicep for your day-to-day development, it might be you're experimenting, or you want to actually bring some innovation into managing your Azure resources using infrastructure as a code. At that time, you want to have some good guidance where and how to learn, and keep your skills up to date about all the new innovation that happen on Azure Bicep. To do that, what we recommend or what I recommend with my friends is to go and check out this GitHub repo called Awesome Azure Bicep. This repo has 11 contributors all over the world, and most of them are MVPs, Microsoft MVPs, who have been involved with Azure Bicep right from the beginning. And what it is, it's a structured way to give you information about official Microsoft Learn resources, and as well as community resources, videos, and podcasts that has been created over the last year and a half, 2 years, and it's still getting maintained. So if you go and fork that and as well as start using it, that would be great, because then you would get to learn what you are looking for. And plus, you can contribute back to the community by putting the resources that you find useful that are not reflected on this repo, because the main idea is to have this list of well curated things. And let's say, you just don't know where to start with Azure Bicep, right? You don't know how to start deploying or building or setting it up. There's no problem. You can use Azure CLI or PowerShell for that. And if you want to use Azure CLI, then you just want to go and, which is the easiest way to start, by the way, you can go and click on Azure CLI document here, and it will give you, references and plus step-by-step ways how you can install and get started with Azure Bicep through Azure CLI that you install on your local machine. And this is, a portable solution, meaning that it will run on not just on your Windows PC, but it will run on macOS and Linux and other distributions. So let's say but you don't want to use Azure CLI because you have been with Windows, you have been with PowerShell for a long time, and you are a PowerShell fan. At that point, you are actually still can use that. There's a PowerShell module how to get started using the Azure Bicep using the PowerShell setup, and you can check that link and go through the references and get up to speed with the using the awesome Azure Bicep with your PowerShell skills. Okay, so you can, of course, there's additional modules that you would have to install and make sure your machine can have every library that's you know uh, requested to have in place in order to develop in Azure Bicep, but that's where you want to start. So this is the one. So in terms of demos, now I'm going to switch to another repo here, GitHub repo. It's called Learn Bicep, and this is under my GitHub repo. By the way, this is my GitHub repo that you can check. So here, if you scroll down, there are like two main repos that you would see. Awesome Azure Bicep is the one that we just covered, where you want to start learning and you need to look for references to get familiar and proficient with Azure Bicep. The next one is Learn Bicep. That's on the right side here. So if you click on that one, and let me actually put those links in the chat. Okay, so you can have the reference, GitHub repos. All right, here you go. It's in the chat. So once you click on Learn Bicep, all the sample codes that I'm going to demonstrate that has been used actually yesterday on the session about private Azure Bicep private modules and container registry. All of them are located in this Learn Bicep repository. Okay, and we are going to use this one. So I have some failing pipeline which I have to fix over I'm planning to fix once I get some time over this weekend. But yeah, you can use this one and you can fork it and use for your benefit. All right, that said, this was information about awesome Azure Bicep and how you can get started and how you can set up your machine and you can run it on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Again, you just need to make sure you have the latest Azure CLI or PowerShell installed, and then you can install them for PowerShell. You install the modules, and then you can run it. Okay, so let's say you have it in place now. What about this history? Where this Azure Bicep came from? Well, it initially came from the November announcement that it came from the August actually. The alpha version first appeared in August, end of the August 2020, and it was of course announced as you know during the Ignite, Microsoft Ignite event, and then fast forward March 1st, 2021, it come with the first supported version 0.3.1, and now after uh, more than 2.5 years, we are at the version 0.20.4, the one that you see on the screen. And this year we expect hopefully get the stable version 1.0. But overall, I would say you wouldn't have to worry if you plan to use this Azure Bicep for your production workloads. There's increased demand for it, and I don't have statistics, but I will request that from Microsoft team. But there is a higher and higher usage per month on Azure Bicep, so that's kind of something to consider if you want to bring that innovation into your infrastructure as a code solutions. Okay, That said, now let's look at some recent innovations, recent features that has been already added to Microsoft Azure Bicep language. So the ones that has been there, and I'm going to demo some of them today, are this new deployment panel, new deployment pane, which will give you some visualization of the deployment of the Bicep code that you have on the left side of your Visual Studio Code so that you can see it. Then there are additional features like getting the az.get secrets support in parameters. Then there's a formatter v2 update that happen on how you can easily format in a way that you want and customize your bicep code formatting experience. There's user-defined types that have been announced and was part of these community calls that some of you might be already dialing in. So user-defined function types are still getting through private preview, and it's going to come soon. Then we already have a bicep param file support, right? So it wasn't in place a couple months ago, but now you can create your Azure Bicep code. You can create your parameters using the same bicep representation. And of course, there were additions to Azure Container Registry when you are using the private containers. Then the helpful text appears in order to resolve any issues to the uh, exact URL of the module that you are trying to get into your code and get it started. So let's switch to the Visual Studio Code now, all right, and then look at that experimental feature, how to enable and how to make it work. Okay, that's what we are going to do now. All right, so here, in order to get to that experimental features, you want to go to the settings part of the your solution. To do that, you would have to scroll down here to the bottom of your Visual Studio Code, okay, and then click on it. But before clicking on that, let me remind that for this demonstration, I'm using the same Azure repo that I just showed you a few minutes ago. It's a learn-bicep. So all the code, all the files are there for you. Okay, so if you want to try them, they are available for you. Okay, let's go to the settings here on the left bottom. Okay, the one that I just showed you, and let's click on it. Then from here, we are going to choose the settings, the one that's here, right? And let's click on that. Okay, once we do that, we are going to come to the settings part of the Visual Studio Code. And here we are going to, you can look for bicep under the extensions, but you can also type bicep here. And if you type it correct, like I didn't do on the first trial, you should get to the bicep section. So here at the bicep section, what you need to do is there are some experimental features. So some of they will appear under experimental here. So let me zoom in here. So you would want to go and check that in. If you don't see that one, it means that you don't have the latest Azure Bicep update on your machine. And I would strongly encourage you to go and update your Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell, and as well as your Bicep version. It needs to be version 0.20 at minimum. Okay, then you would be able to see that checkbox for experimental feature on deployment panes. Okay, so let's see. Let's uh, click that and make sure it's there. The compile on paste, that's another feature. So you can enable the ones that you want, but usually I do enable all of them. Sometimes you may get into some bugs or some issues. So that's expected. This is experimental features. At that point, you can reach back to me if you wish, but you can also reach to GitHub, Azure Bicep GitHub team, and put the issue there. So you can, help with that feedback. It might be also an issue that GitHub team, Azure Bicep GitHub team already actually identified, but still, reporting what doesn't work and hoping and helping in getting into better version of Azure Bicep product, helping in feature, in helping with Azure Bicep development is always, appreciated, and you're welcome to do that. Okay, so we in the settings we did all these things. In addition to that, when you look at my bicep code, you may see here two lines, right? One is a purple line, another one is a gray line. This is something that you do on a settings of the Visual Studio Code itself. It's not an Azure Bicep, it's a Visual Studio Code setting where you can go to the, again, to the settings file here. And the one that you see here is editor ruler, where I put some code here that actually causes that difference. So that gray line is 8 character long. So I wanna make sure it's my code doesn't go too much to the right or it's too long, so it's easier to read. That's one of the reasons. And you have a purple line here, and purple line is helping to show the another line. And if you want to add another line in addition to purple, you can do that. You can put as much as you want. In my case, I have only 2. This is why you see that. Then next thing, and this is going to be used for code formatting, but actual way how you format that and put the uh, your own customization into it is if you go to bicep config file, and if you don't have one, it's here in the project, it's generated. You can take and reuse that, or you can create your own. It's a way how you can customize your experience of bicep code development. Okay, so here, as you see in this Bicep config file, I have few things. I have analyzer, right, which actually puts all the linter rules, all these validations and rules that I want to have in place. Then I have a module aliases for the Bicep private repositories that I have here. Okay, and if you are interested to learn more about this private Bicep aliases and how to do that, you can do in 2 ways, right? So you can check out my previous session here at Gira LATAM 2023. It happened yesterday about Azure Bicep private modules. Or you can also check the on the LinkedIn learning videos. You should be able to find that at the building infrastructure as a code with Bicep part 1. Both of them will show you how to get started with your custom Azure uh, private modules. Then, of course, experimental features, the one that you see here at the end, these are the ones where you can enable or disable them. In our case, as you see, I have enabled imports and user-defined types, which is still experimental, but I also enabled the pretty printing, which actually gives you ability to format how you want your bicep code to be, you know, formatted. Okay, that said, this was a little bit dive into how you can enable your experimental features and how you can get started with that. Now let's go back. But before going back, yeah, let's go back. These are the features that we have, and just to show you like example here, small example. Let's say we have some files here, right? As you see, there's no long files here, but if you open this under the samples 14-deploy child parent scenarios, this is the file where I have some longer representation of the files. So if you want to format that, there are 2 ways, right? So either go to the you can go to the command palette and then select format document. That's one way to do that. Another way to do that is use the Shift Alt F. That's, if you are more into the keys, or you can right click and say, okay, format this document. That's another way to do that. So let's do that now. And as you see, what happened here, the formatting basically trim down the last sentence here where I defined some looping for the containers, right? That's what happened there. So that's why if you want to do something there, this is one of the ways how you can do this. Okay, that said, uh, let me scroll. Let's go back here to the slide where we were. So we look at some formatter, and we are going to look how to use the deployment pane as one of the demos that we'll have later today. So next is upcoming Bicep releases. So this is the set of features that um, Azure Bicep team put on their roadmap. And this is publicly available, by the way, so there is no NDA required to know this. So first one is a private networking for deployment scripts that you see there. Then after that, They have Microsoft Graph Provider, and I'm going to have another slide about that just to give you an idea what it is and how it will help you. And then, of course, dynamic types are getting their updates in order to get into better shape. They're in private preview at the moment, and you will get later on, we'll get some more capabilities on passing the resources between the modules. For example, you want to pass some parameters between modules or outputs. That would be a feature that's going to be enabled. And then there would be more completions toward making private registry functionality and experience much better. Okay, that said, what about this graph, right? So I just mentioned about the graph. So what you see here is how, an upcoming feature, right? So where you can enable Graph APIs with Azure Bicep. As end user, you would define your ARM Bicep template that will use the ARM, of course. Okay, let's see some questions here before I go. I see. Thank you for putting the questions, by the way. So Pratap asked that will Azure Bicep on version 1.0 have any change in terms of syntax or structure? So with Azure Bicep version 1.0, there would be, of course, some change. And till we get into the version 1.0, there might be some breaking change. And some of them I saw over the lifetime of these updates, but they are well communicated and you would know it in advance that what features are going to or which representation of the code is going to change. It usually happens on syntax side and the way how certain constructs are represented in Azure Bicep. But yeah, some change will be there. Some of them might be breaking change. Then next question here. Are there any community previews or early access programs? Yes, there are actual community preview progress and early access. You may check up these. You can check up that on my blog and as well as you can ping me. But there is a early preview program for Azure Bicep. Okay, I hope that answers your questions. If there are some more questions, please feel free to put them here. So with enabling the Graph API, back to our slide where we left, it's actually a great feature because with this thing, what you get is actually what you get here is basically once you can manage your Graph API, meaning that you can actually register an application on your Azure Active Directory, which is called Entra ID at the moment. So if you see Azure AD, this is old name of that, as you know, there was update on the name of Azure AD. It's a Microsoft Entra ID at the moment. It's Entra. So long story short, if you are dealing with some application registrations and some permissions and you want to declare them as a code and manage your application registration and permissions using your Bicep code, that work is getting done in order to enable that. And that's where once the Graph APIs are, they are in private preview at the moment. Once they become public preview, you would be able to, experiment with them. But in order to experiment with them right now in their early stage, you would have to sign up for the private preview. Okay, that said, next is uh, as you saw on the previous Visual Studio Code demo, and that's the place where you want to make sure that you actually enable your experimental feature for deployment pane. Then once this enabled, you should be able to see such a additional visualization on your Visual Studio Code that will kind of elevate your experience of deploying Azure Bicep code. So let's jump into Visual Studio Code and see how it works in action, right? Let's do that. Okay, I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code now. Please let me know once you see the same screen. I'm going to say plus here, and we will, close this. And I'm going to pick up a very simple bicep code because we want to demonstrate the actual feature. Okay, and that's going to be about this deployment of a resource group. So here I have a deployment of a resource group code that where I defined that it's going to target the subscription, right? The subscription where I'm logged in, then it defines the name, which is called a resource group back to future. We can change that and say, it's a LATAM demo, and it's a different name, LATAM demo. And then it actually targets East US too, but if you wish, we can say let's use West US too, okay, for different. And then it has some unused parameters and variables here. And then we have the actual, declaration of the resource group here. Okay, let me actually. Then we have actual representation of resource group here. So in order to deploy that, you can use here on the Azure CLI, right? You can go and type. We need to authenticate to our Azure, and then we can say Azure deployment group. Then create that resource group. But we don't have to use this CLI anymore. If you want to have more visual way of doing that, you can right click on that, and that's once you enable that experimental feature on your Visual Studio Code. Then you can, here you would see an option saying that show deployment pane. Okay, the deployment pane, I'm going to click on that option here, and here on the right side of my Visual Studio Code, now we see that, hey, I have something new, something going on here. I have deployment scope that I need to pick up for my deployment, which is the deployment of this file, deployment one-deploy.rg.bicep. That's the name of the file, right, that we see. And then we have a subscription that's already chosen up. If you don't see yours, you just need to click on pick scope, and then you need to log into your Azure and pick up the subscription where you wanted to deploy your, and then it actually by default has location East US, right? These are the let me see. Yep, let me control. So it has ECS, but here when you choose the parameters, you can choose the parameter file itself, or you can define them. So here the name is the name that we want to have, but if you want to change, we can also type it here. And here's the location where it's going to be deployed. And this is unused parameter, so we are not going to touch it. So here, let's validate this file, right? Let's make sure that everything is okay. So once we click on validate, what happens is that it's going to go and build a ARM JSON representation of our bicep code. And if you want to see the JSON, you can click on show JSON. It will show you JSON representation of that. Next, let's say we want to use the pre-flight validation. We want to see if it deployed this resource group, would it succeed in deploying? So let's click on what if. And what it does now, when it goes and actually implements a query against our Azure subscription to see that if we deploy this file on the left side, which is the deployment of a simple resource group, what will happen? And as you see, it brought the result back, and it will show us, here. Okay, it says that we have this invalid template. So there's delete unused parameter. So it says, it's failing because we have this, unused parameters. And this is because I have a linting rule on my bicep config that doesn't allow. So what we will do, we'll go ahead and comment them out, right? We will save this. And what we are going to do next is we are going to validate it again now because we changed we are not using unused parameters or variables, and our linting rule doesn't complain and doesn't give an error. So we have result as succeeded, meaning that it's good to go. So let's click on what if again. And this time we should expect some, again, some positive response saying that our deployment should work and there isn't any issue. Okay, succeeded. So now let's do actual deployment. But before doing this actual deployment, I want to show you where it will deploy, right? So if you go and open the my Azure portal, as you see, this is the all uh, resource groups that I have here, and I don't have RG LATAM demo, so that there's no such a resource group here. So let's go and deploy this by using the deployment pane, right? This experimental feature. I'm going to click on it on Visual Studio Code, and let's wait. It should usually it's very fast. It's just few 5 to 10 seconds. So as you see, it says succeeded, and this says that a resource group by the name rg-latam demo should be deployed succeeded. So we want to verify that it should be deployed to the West US region. That's the parameter that we selected. So let's do that. Let's go back and oops, open our, this is the Azure portal. We are going to refresh this, and we see that we have Azure LATAM here. So it means that it's actually worked on both sides, right? So, and this is West US 2, that's the region. Okay, I will just click on it, and we see that, okay, it's deployed to West US 2, it's empty, it has some tags here, environment demo, but the main idea is that we're expecting this LATAM demo resource group to be deployed, and it is deployed with success. So that said, this was illustration of this feature, experimental feature deployment pane on Azure for Azure Bicep and Visual Studio Code, right? Next, let's see what we have. Next, there was some updates into the visualizer, and this may not seem very big to you, but I think it's substantial big change. Before, when you were trying to go and visualize your code here on the left, let's say you have some bicep code here written, it would give you names and the number of resources that are going to be deployed. So you can see them, but you can't figure out what type of resource it is because they are all in gray and it's just show like an object there, right? But now with the new after new updates into the Azure Bicep, uh, and this is update to the Azure Bicep extension, by the way. Now we can see a newer picture. So this is the Visualizer 2.0 that you can use right away at the moment with the latest, of course, updates into your Azure Bicep version. You can see that now the same file, this is the same file, you can see the graphs, right? So you can see this, what's the virtual machine, is the application service plan, or what type of resources you are actually deploying. And to show you that in demo, let me do that so you can see it in live, right? As a live demo, not just something that I'm, showing you and you don't see it. So here I'm going to close the deployment pane, and I'm going to open these modules, uh, 7.deploy. So there are a number of modules here, as you see, and it's deploying some virtual machine, storage account, some Cosmos DB. So I'm going to right click here and say, okay, open visualizer to the side and show me what you got here, what resources are going to be deployed. And here we go. So as you see, those same nicely visualized with icons, the Azure resources are going to be deployed, giving you some idea about that what this bicep code is supposed to be doing. It's using, of course, modules where it pulls the declaration of Azure resources, the ones that you see here, including the virtual machine, and then visualize that Azure resources that are going to be deployed if you take this file and deploy into your environment. Okay, that's pretty cool. Next, we I came to the place where I'm open to questions, and if you have any questions or anything, you are more than welcome to check them up. But before doing that, let me actually go through what we have covered, and then I will look into the chat to address any questions. So we had very express intro into Azure Bicep to get you some understanding what it is, how it is tied up to the Azure Microsoft Azure environment, and how it is related to the previous representation of resources using the ARM JSON templates. Then we looked into latest updates and latest features on Microsoft Azure Bicep, right? And then we looked into the next releases, what to expect in upcoming 2 or 3 months from Microsoft Azure Bicep team, which they have a number of very exciting features going on there. Then we looked into some experimental features using the Visual Studio Code and the Bicep extension that we have there. In addition to that, you get some references how to get started with Azure Bicep and how to be how to get all the information that you need to be successful in your Azure Bicep deployments. And finally, we had a number of demos while I was showing you some features that has been deployed or have been activated, have been released in last 2 or 3 months, and as well as the ones that are going to be released in the next, uh, you know, in the next pipeline, in the next 2 or 3 months that Azure Bicep team is working on. Okay, that said, I wanna show this QCR cost for everyone so that you can use that while you are embracing a journey to learn how to do infrastructure as a code with Azure Bicep. So as you see here on the left side, the one Learn Bicep GitHub is the repo that I use, and I also put in the chat the link how you can access that, all the demos and everything. Then I talked about 2 video courses that are available on LinkedIn platform. One is Azure Bicep First Look, another one is Building Infrastructure as a Code using the Azure Bicep Part 1. And then this is the official Bicep project from Microsoft team that you see, and you can access it here. And as well as we have this awesome Azure Bicep GitHub where with the community members, I'm contributing there to keep it up to date with all the references for everyone to learn Azure Bicep. Okay, I hope that's enough time to get the QCR code and get you up to date with those references. Next, I just want to mention again these 2 video courses. If you are a video learner and want to watch those, uh, then I would strongly recommend to start with Azure Bicep First Look, and then continue with Part 1. By the way, in few months I'm working on completion of the part 2 video. So if you like them or if you have any feedback, please let me know. And finally, I want to thank everyone for your attention and for your time for joining this uh, Gira LATAM and Europe conference 2023. There are a number of interesting, presentations. And before doing that, let me see. There's one more question I will bring into the studio. So this came from Pratap as well. He asks, I have one more query about how can I use Azure Bicep to enable and configure access to Microsoft Graph APIs for my Azure source. Okay, you are, more than welcome to reach me, Pratap. I will try to help you. But in the meanwhile, keep in mind that this is in a private preview, meaning that there's still a lot of things that getting shaped up and built up to provide that functionality in Azure Bicep code. So I would say, yeah, go ahead and contact me, but there are still things that needs to be done there. All right. Again, thank you everyone for joining my session on, what are the new things that are happening on Azure Bicep and what are the new experimental features that you can have your hands on starting from today by getting the latest build of Azure Bicep and underlying platform. Now, after my session, we have some more sessions here. And I see Pratap put a thank you. Thank you, Pratap, for your participation and questions, actually. I'm really glad that it's helpful and you have been interacting. I also encourage everyone to interact who joined my session. So you are more than welcome to put your messages here. Okay, on the next session, I know that after my session, there's another session, and we have Beluz, my colleague from Cloud Launch and Learn team. Hi, Beluz, do you want to come back to studio? Let me add her.
Oh,
Okay, can you hear
hi.
us?
Yeah, I can. Can you?
Yes, great. Yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Perfect. All good, and excited to start this next session too. I was watching yours and it's pretty
Yes.
interesting. Yeah,
Oh, thank you,
a lot to
Beluz.
learn.
So
A lot
have
to
you?
learn.
Yeah, great. On a side note, did you try to experiment with Azure Bicep maybe on your free time or so?
Not yet, to be honest, I haven't, but I would like to do
Great.
definitely.
Let me know if you have any questions.
I
And
sure
Belus,
will.
I want to hand out the session back to you and say, and kind of transition back to the backstage while you will be moderating the rest of the sessions. And again, thank you
Perfect.
everyone for coming to this event and being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eklund. Thank you, everybody. Well, we will come back in a few minutes and we will get ready at 7, okay? Hi everyone. Hello. How are you? Hola, comunidad de LATAM. Hope everybody's watching this next session. So before just to start, I'm just gonna host this session, and my name is Beluz, and I'm gonna share here one of my screen just to show you something. Um, okay, so this is just as you see the web page of the Gira LATAM, and there is all the schedule of the events are here and the speakers, so you can get some more information about it. And as you can see for today, we have on Friday few sessions, and we will continue after Elkhan. We will continue with this session with our speaker Solomon, and the session will be about Azure virtual networking pairing. So for that, I'm just gonna welcome to the speaker. Just a second. Hi Solomon, how are you? I, Sorry about it. I think you're mute.
Yeah, I was mute.
Perfect. I can hear you clear now. So how are you
Yeah,
doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Where are you based at the moment?
I'm based in the UK.
Oh, nice, nice, very good. So we are pretty the same in the time zone
Oh, where are you based?
in Dublin, in Ireland.
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah. We're having the same time zone.
Very good. So excited to hear your session, Solomon. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Solomon Jeremiah. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I am also an MVP in Azure. I basically work around infrastructure, and I started with the on-prem environment, and eventually I moved to the cloud where I build stuffs. And yeah, basically what I do, I help organization to support their infrastructure, and I also come in when there is maybe a migration or planning for to build an infrastructure. So that's basically what I do day to day, and I also mentor people that are trying to find their way into tech, and I just show them the path that they can start with, which is cloud. Yeah, so that's
Wow,
basically, yeah, what I do.
sounds sounds busy.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm really excited to start to hear your session. I think the topic is pretty interesting. And as I mentioned to Ekland before, well, when he was finishing his session, I would like to learn a little bit more about all of these products, about Azure and all the things that you can get done with this software. So perfect. So if you are ready, we can just start. Would you like to get your screen ready?
Yeah, of course, I would just share
Perfect.
my screen.
No worries. In the meantime, I will just remind everybody, let us know in the chat where are you based at the moment. Also, if you have any question during the session, don't feel feel free to leave them in the chat. So then at the end we can start asking the questions to Solomon. Um, so perfect. Just we will wait for your presentation. I think it's ready, right?
Yeah, it is.
Perfect. I will add it here. I hope it's going. Not yet. Let me try again. No, no, no. Maybe it's in a second screen.
Yeah,
There
it's
it
up
is.
now. Okay.
Super. Fantastic. So if you're ready, then all the stage is yours and enjoy the session. I will be in the background if you need anything. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Salon. Enjoy.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm about to start my session now. Thank you everyone for joining us today live on this session. And today I would be talking about Azure Virtual Network Pairing. My name is Solomon Jeremiah. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I'm also an MVP. If you want to connect with me, that's my LinkedIn URL. You can always send a connection, and yeah, I can. If you probably have questions, you can always reach out to me there. And if you probably want to read about some of the um, how to do it blog I have. You can always visit abcofcloud.cloud and you will get to see information there. So today, before I start my session, I just want to give this little story and then I will just move into my section. I know I'm actually talking about virtual network pairing, but then imagine you're actually staying in your house and you have like an extended family. You have a lot of siblings, grandparents, and you're all staying together in one big building. The question is, if all of you in that building, you don't have a name, right? And you need to probably call your dad, there's no name, or you all have the same name, there's going to be a bit of confusion, right? If everybody's name is Solomon and you want to speak to your brother, you're saying Solomon, your dad is responding, your mom is responding, you see that there's going to be a lot of confusion. So that's why basically you have your name, probably like Solomon, and your dad is bearing Jeremiah and someone else is bearing Emmanuel, right? So if you look at networking, networking is actually solving that problem when we are talking about IT technologies, right? When we are talking about having different resources, network is actually solving that problem where we don't have confusions and conflicts between resources. So today, I'm not really talking about network, but when I'm talking about Azure Virtual Network Pairing, I would just need to give you a bit of knowledge about what a virtual network is before we go to what is Azure Virtual Network Pairing. So I would go to my next slide. So my next slide here, I have the agendas for today. And what I'll be talking about first will be the Azure Virtual Network. Then we'll talk about the virtual network pairing. We'll talk of types of pairing, the benefit of using virtual network pairing, and the pricing. Then we'll go into demo, right? Demo to me is like one of the beauty of any speaking, right? The demo, seeing what someone is saying working, is actually beautiful. So that's where the demo comes in. So the next, let me move, my mouse is too fast. So the next slide here, what is Azure Virtual Network? When we are talking about Azure Virtual Network, right, if you're familiar with the physical network, right, the network you use in your on-premises environment, it is nothing different from when we are talking of the Azure Virtual Network, right? It is, if you have knowledge of networking, you can actually build networks in Azure. So Azure Virtual Network is a fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. So you're building your private network in Azure. And when you're building it, that's when we are talking about the Azure Virtual Network. And if you see the next sentence, it is talking of Azure Virtual Network. It enables many type of Azure resources, such as the virtual machines, secure communication with each other, the internet, and on-premises network. So when you have a virtual network and you build resources in that network, they can communicate with each other in Azure. If you're familiar with the physical network, you know, when you're learning about networking, you also talk about subnets, right? In Azure, you can as well create subnets in your virtual networks. But the good thing about subnets in Azure is when you have different subnets in a virtual network, the resources in each of those subnets, they can actually communicate with each other, because by default, there's a route that enables those resources in those subnets to communicate with each other in Azure, right? But now, when we have different virtual network, right, and we probably have resources in that, in those in the separate virtual network, what's going to happen is they would not communicate with each other, right? Because they are in different network. And if we also have a single network and we also have different subnets in the virtual network, we can actually prevent traffic from moving from one subnet to another if we want to. That's why we have the NSG there. We can actually restrict traffic from flowing from one subnet to another or from one resource to another. So basically, this is me explaining what the virtual network is. I'm going to do this in my demo. You'll see how I would work with the virtual network. But I just want you to understand what the virtual network is all about and just throw a little light about the virtual network. So the next thing I will be looking at is the virtual network pairing. Now, I spoke about virtual network. We have different networks, and probably we have different resources in this different network, and these resources in the different network, they can't actually communicate to each other, except probably we are using like a VPN gateway, which will be routing traffic over the internet, right? But now we have what we call the virtual network pairing in Azure. So with virtual network pairing, from the definition there, you would see I said from the slide, virtual network pairing enables you to seamlessly connect two or more virtual network in Azure. So what is virtual network actually doing for us? It is actually solving that problem of us probably going to create a VPN to gateway to route traffic, right? And when we are actually pairing these two networks, our resources, they'll be communicating through the private network, and it will just look like we have one network because everything is going to be running on Microsoft Backbone, right? We are not going to be routing our traffic over the internet, and we don't really need a VPN. And when we are also talking about the bandwidth, right? We are not going to be having that drop in bandwidth in terms of when we are setting up VPN. So from the slide, the virtual networks appear as one for connectivity purposes. The traffic between virtual machines in paired virtual network uses the Microsoft backbone infrastructure. Yeah, so I explained that. So we have traffic, and this traffic is going to be private, and they are going to be using the Microsoft backbone infrastructure. So that's what virtual network pairing does. It's actually solving that problem of us creating a VPN or trying to route traffic from the one from one virtual network to the other. So we have the virtual network pairing solving that issue for us. And if we are also talking about the virtual network pairing, right? One thing we should note about the virtual network pairing is that when we pair two virtual network, the pairing is a non-transitive pairing. When I mean non-transitive, it simply means if I probably create a pairing between my branch and my headquarter, and then I probably have offshore network that is connected to branch, it doesn't mean that the traffic can actually flow from the other network that is not paired to the paired network. So I will explain all of this while I'm doing my demo. So the pairing is just going to be existing between this network to the other network. It doesn't transmit into the other network. So if I go to the next year, so here we have types of pairing. So when we are talking of the types of pairing, what we should also note is we can actually create this pairing for networks that are in the same regions, and we can as well create virtual network pairing for networks that are on different regions. That means you can actually create your network on the East US and you're creating another network in UK South, and you can set up a pairing between those two networks so that the resources in those two networks can communicate. Yeah, we can actually do that in Azure pairing. So the next thing I'll be talking about here is the benefits of using the virtual network pairing. So the network traffic between paired virtual network is private. Yeah, it is private because it is actually going to be running on the Microsoft backbone network. No public internet gateway or encryption is required in communication between the virtual network. So basically, if we have the pairing between these two networks, the latency would actually be low, right? When resources in these different networks are trying to communicate with each other. And one of the benefits is that we can as well create this virtual network pairing between different tenants. We can set up virtual network pairing between different tenants. And also, when we are looking at the bandwidth also, we don't have to be looking at a situation where we are having drop in our bandwidth. So now the next thing I would be talking about before I jump into the demo is the pricing, right? So for the pricing, when we create virtual network on Azure, it is free. When creating virtual networks on Azure, virtual network is free. You can create up to 50 virtual network in a region and it is free. But then if you're setting up your pairing, you're actually not charged for creating the virtual network pairing. You're charged for the ingress and egress traffic that is coming from the paired network. That's what you'll be charged. So if I go to the next, which is the demo. I'm sorry for this demo. It's not so nice, but yeah, I think it's going to explain exactly what I will be doing right now. So my demo, what I will be doing in my demo, I would try to just build something like this and then try to create a pairing between these two networks. So if you look at the network, I have a VNet for Gira headquarters, and that is the IP address I'll be using for the headquarters. And then I have one subnet in it, right? And that subnet is going to have one VM in it. I'll create a VM in that subnet. Now, the next thing I'll be doing will be creating a second VNet, right? And this virtual network I'll be creating will be for the Gira branch. And I'm going to use this IP range. And the next thing I'll be doing is I would also create a subnet. And that subnet is going to have one VM. So the idea of this demo is to show you how these two VMs will be communicating with each other from the different network. So the next thing I would do is to jump right into my Azure portal. Let me just do this and bring it over there. So I'm pulling my screen over. Yes, so I have this. So yes, I'm right in my Azure portal. So I will just start with building my virtual network. So before building my virtual network, I just need to create a resource group because that's how I can actually manage the resource I'll be creating on Azure. So I would just quickly create a resource group and I'll pick a subscription. Let me.
Hi, Solomon. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry about this. I just would like to ask you if it's possible to maybe make a little bit of zoom in your
Okay,
screen.
yeah, of course I
Yes,
can. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to pick this subscription and I can actually name my resource group. So my resource group, I will just call this resource group Gira Gira. Yeah, so I'm going to just name this and then I can pick a region for it. So let me just use the UK South. So this is the region I'm going to pick for my resource group. So I would just go next and just create this resource group. So now that I'm done creating this resource group, the next thing I'll do is to actually create my VNet. So I need to create two VNets. I can click here, but in case you probably want to, you can as well just search for it, right? You can just say virtual network. Once you search for virtual network, you'll probably see this here, but just this virtual machine, sorry. Let me just type it. Okay, sorry, this virtual network. So I would select this here to just take me to create, right? If I click on this, it's probably just going to take me to where I have my other virtual network and then I can create it. So this is the fast way. I'll just click on that. So now I'm actually here where I can create my virtual network. So I'll click on create virtual network. So I actually created the resource group here. So this is the resource group I created. So now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to name this virtual network and I would name this Gira headquarters, right? So this will be the name of the, sorry, this will be the name of my VNet, and then I'm just going to go next, and I'll leave everything on default, right? So for the IP, one thing we need to be careful about when we are creating our virtual network is, and also the network pairing, we need to be careful so we don't have our IPs overlapping. That's one. And also when we are creating a subnet, we should also not use up our subnet. I will explain that. So for that, I will just come here and probably just change this to, I think this was 70 and this is going to be 0.0. So you can see this is similar with the physical networking where we have /16 and we know the number of IP addresses we would use. So, and for those that do networking, you would now have to say, okay, we are minusing 2. We can't use the first IP, which is the network, and we can't use the last, right, which is the broadcast. But when I'm creating my subnet, you're going to see that for Azure, that there's a little bit of difference in terms of that law of, oh, you're not using the first and the rest they are usable IP, because Microsoft, they still have some reserved IPs that they would keep to themselves. So now I've actually created this address space. This is the address I'll be using. The subnet now is actually not matching, right? Because this was the default. So I can always just hit delete and take that off. So I can add my subnet. So if I'm adding my subnet, I can now choose to give it a name. So I can just say Gira HQ subnet. So once I give that to Gira HQ subnet, sorry, let me just raise my mic away from my view. Okay, yeah. So
Sorry, I'm sorry again for this, Solomon. I should have asked you this before. Sorry for the interruption. There is a few questions on the chat, but just to ask you, would you like to answer at the end, or would you like to be
yeah,
answering?
at the at the end,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you so
yeah,
much. I'm sorry about this.
yeah, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so for this now, I have the Jira headquarter subnet and I'm using /24, right? So if I come and I do this, now what I'm actually doing, I'm using up all my address space. That means I would not be able to come create more subnets in this network. So when we are working with Azure and we are creating virtual network, we need to plan how we would be using our subnets. So what I would do, instead of using this, I can just go back to /24 and then pick my subnet. So I'm going to leave all of these as default, and then I will just add. So now I have my first network, and I have the first subnet where I would be creating my VM. So I'm just going to create this now. So the next virtual network I'll be creating, I can choose to create it in a different region and it's still going to work, right? If I choose to create it in a different region. So, but what I would do, I would just still create it on in the same region. But the procedure of setting it up is just the same thing with what I'll be doing now. So the next thing I would do, I would just go back and create my next virtual network. So I will just type virtual network. Yeah, it should be up. Yeah, so this is my virtual network again. So I'm just going to do the same thing, but I'll be very fast this time. So I'll just click on hit create. And this is the subscription I'm using. And so I'm just keeping it together so I can arrange them. So I'm just going to call this Gira branch. Sorry about that. So for the IP rights, I would just use 70. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm going to take this off and then I can just add the subnets real quick. So I'm doing the same thing. So I'm going to give this so my subnet is fine. So I will add the subnet and then I'll create this. So yeah. So now I have my two subnets in my resource group. So if I click on this, okay, let me just wait for this to be okay. Yes. So if I click on this now, you can see I have the second one is probably just coming up. Let me just refresh and see. So while the other VNet is coming up, I would just go into this. So if I come here, you would see that my VNet is now ready. I have the address space and I have the subnets, right? And yeah, so this is where I will be creating the VM that I want to create for this particular network in. So let me just go back here. Okay, yeah, so the second VNet is right here. So now nothing has been done. They are just two separate virtual network. So what I will be doing next now is I need to add my VMs. So I can just come here and search for virtual machine. So this is, I'll hit here and then I need to create my virtual machine. So I would also be very fast with creating the virtual machine. So I would look for the Gira. Yep. So resource group is just a way I can use in managing my resource, and probably just like this is a demo, I can just go and delete the resource group and everything is gone. So I would call this Gira HQ VM. So I'll copy this because so I'm going to select this and I will leave all of this as default, right? And I'm just going to see the image that I need to. So I want to install Windows Server in it, but I think that's me just going the long way. I can just hit this drop down and select any of this VM. 2019 is fine. So once I select that, I would select the size I need. So I would this size is fine. After this, I'm just going to take it off, right? So for the username, I would put this. So for the VM, I am just going to create it fast because it's more like a different topic on its own. So I'm going to give this a password real quick. So I would go next, and I'm going to leave everything as default. But yeah, so for this first VM, I think I named that HQ. So this should be in. So what I need to do, right? I need to change the VNet to HQ. I think I named that HQ. So yeah, so I just selected the network I want to put that resource on. And the next thing I did was select the subnet I created, right? And for this, I will just leave the public IP the way it is, and then I can go next, next, and next, next, and then I'll create this VM. So let's just look at the review, and then I'll be sure the naming and everything is fine, and then I can hit the create button. So this, while this is going on, I think probably I can use this place. So let me just search for virtual machine. I actually wanted to show the market, but I think my caps is, well, it's fine. I'll just go there and then just hit the create virtual machine. So this is another way you can as well create the virtual machines. So I would select the Gira, and let me just confirm this. Okay, so this is Gira and this is headquarters VM, right? So I can hit create for this. So that means I'll be creating the VM for the branch now, and I would just give this Gira branch VM. Let me get this. And yeah, I will leave it there because of the VNet, and I can just select, yep, I'll select that, and yeah, everything is fine here. So I would just use the same name for the username, and let me give this a password. I will leave everything as default, just the same way. So now when we get to the network, right, I have to select the network. And lucky for me, this actually selected the branch, right? And this is the subnet I created for the branch. And then I'll leave the public IP and every other thing, but the way it is by default. And I'll go next, next, and create. So let me just confirm. So this VM is already done, and this validation passed, and then I'll just hit. So if you look at the VM now, I have the public IP address, and if I probably come to network, right, I should see. So I actually gave it .4 because I know once I create a VM, it's going to get .4. So it is now on the network for HQ, and this is the subnet. So this is fine. And this VM should also be running now. If I come to, I'm trying to look for something, just a second. Before I go to the pairing, there's something I'm trying to look for. Okay, I would actually check that when I go to the network. I was trying to see something. Okay, so now that we are here, right, I can from here get to the network if I want to. Yep, so I can come to this network, and I know that particular VM is .4, right? The other one is also .4. It's just that we have 80 and then we have 70 to differentiate both of them. So if we scroll down, we should have the pairing, right? So this is where we need to do our pairing for this particular network. And if I come here to this other VM, I just want to go to the resource and confirm. So the next thing I will actually do now, I would try to log into this particular VM that I just created. So let me log in. there's something I actually wanted to just show people, but let me log into this VM first of all. So now I'm just going to RDP into this VM. I would download it and then I will just keep this and open this, right? So let me connect to the VM. It's actually on my other screen. So I would just paste this here, the name, and then I'll enter the password. I'm actually connecting to the VM on my other screen. So here's the VM. I'm actually connected to this VM at the moment, right? So I would try to connect to the next VM. So let me just leave this while it is running. Oh, let me open the next VM. So I'm just looking at the other VM. I think I actually created core server, but it's fine. Let me just let me go into the other one. It should be let me. Okay, this is the network interface. So let me just go back and connect to my other VM. This is headquarters here. So I would download the RDP, sorry. So I think I actually installed. So let me just go back to prevent all of this. Let me just go back and create the VM. I think okay, I think this is fine. Let me just open this and be sure I'm not connecting to the same. Okay, so this is the same VM. Let me go to my resource group and then look for Gira. So where is headquarters? Yep. So let me connect to the headquarters. So this font is actually, let me just reduce this a bit. I think. Okay, let me connect to the next VM. Let me just copy this and paste. So I'll pull the VMs here. I'm trying to connect to the other VM. Yes, I've connected to the other VM. So I think I actually created core VM, core server. So, but it's fine. We'll just use it that way. So this is the second VM I created. I think it's actually missing. So this VM is actually not, something is, let me just try to log into this VM again. So let me try to log into the other VM again. It's actually not bringing up the command prompt. So let me go back. I think I should just, let me just use the IP and connect to it. This is branch. So I can just get this IP and then I arrow deep into that VM. So let me do that. So this other VM is actually still stuck. So what I can do, I would just recreate that VM and then I would be setting up the pairing. So for me to do that, I would leave this VM to be running, but let me just go to the VNet I created. So this is the VNet. While I'm setting up the pairing, I'll just go back and create the other VM. So this is the VNet for branch, and this is the VNet for headquarters. So basically, if we want to create the pairing, right, we just need to come to pairing, and then once we come here, we can choose to add it. Now, once we are here, I can choose to give it a name, right? I'm actually creating the parent from the headquarters. So I can just say Gira, Gira HQ, Gira. I think my mouse is just jumping to Gira branch. Yeah. So this is the name, right? I'm creating the pairing from the headquarters to the branch. So now traffic to remote virtual network allow, right? I'm going to allow it. I'm not blocking it. Then traffic forwarded from remote virtual network. So this, I will also leave this as allowed. So basically what this means is, you know, I explained earlier that it is not transitive when we are talking about the traffic. But once we allow this, we can actually create like a hub and spoke where we can forward traffic to, we can create a route in our hub, and that our hub can actually forward traffic from different VNets to this particular VNet. Like we can create pairing from this VNet to the hub, create a VNet pairing from another VNet to the hub, and we can choose to forward traffic through the hub, and then it can pass through this VNet to the other VNet. So if we actually want to do stuff like that, we can allow it and also work. That's when we also have to use the remote virtual network gateway or route server. So but we are going to leave this on as default, because we are not actually creating that now. We just want to create a pairing between the two networks. So the next thing I would do now is to give the remote virtual network, which is the other network, a name, and the name I'm going to give this is going to be the reverse of the name. So this will be Gira branch to Gira headquarters, which is the, so now I'm going to leave it in resource manager. We can as well use the resource ID, right? If we probably have the resource ID and we don't really have access to the other subscription, we can probably just use the resource ID to actually create the pairing. So now I'm going to select the VNet, right? This is the VNet. So you can see the same thing I'm actually setting up here is just the same thing I did here, right? So we can allow, you can choose to say, okay, I'm blocking traffic, right? The other way. It depends on what you want for your configuration. So I'm going to just click on add here. And once I click on add, this is going to be updating. And if I probably go to the other VNet, let me just go to, so if I go to the other VNet, which is the branch, now I should see that coming up there. So if I come to this VNet and I'm going to the pairing, yeah, oh, so it's already connected. So you can see it didn't actually take time. Just in few seconds, I already have the VNet showing from the branch. And if I go to the headquarters now, you can see it's still showing updating here. But if I refresh, you can see now the pairing status is actually connected for these two VMs. So now I have one of my VMs that is actually down. So, but what I would do, I would just try to create those VMs like real quick. So let me be sure of the image I'll be using this time around. So let me just quickly create a VM, and all of this will be going down after this demo. So I will just pick the resource account real quick, and let me just say Gira new. real quick. And oh yeah, I said it. I used core, right? So basically, when you're creating Windows Server, core is just going to give you terminal. You're just going to be setting up stuff. So I was just supposed to use let me just use this data center, right? And I will just leave it the way it is, and then I will just say Gira new. Yeah, no, I think I used new here, so I just keep it the same. So let me um, give my password real quick. So I will just go next, next, and yeah, this is going to be in branch. I'll just leave this in the branch. Yeah, so let me just use the interface so we can actually just see the GUI instead of the command. So I think I just need to create another one, and what I will just do is I'm going to put this real quick in. Yeah, so this is going to go to Jira, and then this is going to be Jira again. Oh, me and caps. Jira again. Yeah, so I'm just going to, I'm not going to use the core server. I would use, let me use this data center, and I'm going to just give it a password. My mouse is actually doing stuff for me today. So I'm going to just put this, that's, what am I doing? This is supposed to be Jira again. Yeah, so I'm going to type this. So I'm going to go. So yeah, so I'm just going to give this a password, and next, next, next. Oh, I was too fast. So I need to confirm, no, this is going to be going to HQ, and yeah. So I'm just going to go next, 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 and next. So I didn't really need to go next, next. I can just hit review and create because I've already done what I need to do. So now I can check I can just go to my resource group and go to Jira. So I need to look for new. Yeah, so this is new. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now with new is I'm just going to get the IP and then RODP into new real quick. So let me just RODP into new on my other computer screen. Okay. Yep. So new is actually coming up. So let me just keep new here while new is coming up. And or wait, let me get into again. Where is again? Again should be, let me refresh. Yeah, created. So yeah, this is again. So let me just get the IP for again, and then our RDP into again. So I'm going to bring this here, and let me just RDP there. Yes. Okay, all good. So now, so I don't waste time, yeah, this is what I would just do. So I I need to just drag this down, and I can just go to CMD command prompt. So there are different ways you can as well test this, right? But when we are talking about network, ping is what everybody loves doing. So first of all, we need to ping this. IPs, right? But now we are not pinging this IP here. We're actually trying to ping the private IPs. So for this, we can go to we can check the network to see the private IP, but it is right here. It is 5 for 70, and this is Gira again, right? And if we want to get the private network for new, which is this Gira new, we can see that it is also 5. So now we are trying to ping the 5 dot 5 for both VMs. So now I will just come here and try to ping it. Now this is not going to work, right? So if I do 10 dots, first of all, let's just do this. We can as well do this, right? Instead of going there, I can as well do this and say, okay, what is, I can see this is 80.5, right? That's this particular VM, and the other one is going to be 70.5. So if I probably come here and just scroll down real quick, and I just search for CMD coming up. Yep. Yes, so this is the CM command prompt, and I will just scroll up. So what I would do is I'm going to say ipconfig here, so we see the IP of this VM. So this is 70.5. So now I will try to ping this machine. So I will just do ping 10.70.0.5. So now the reason I'm actually not going to, I'm getting the timed out is because the firewall for that VM is actually turned on. So if I go and turn off that firewall, it should be going very well for this machine. Or I just need to allow ICMP. So for me to do that, I can just type new, let me allow ICMP here. So I can do the new net firewall, and then I can do display name, then I can just do allow ICMP before. So you can as well just do this in your, you can as well just go to your firewall and turn it off, but this is not advisable when you're using it in a production environment, right? But the idea is we are actually trying to test what if this configuration is actually working at the moment. So I will just type ICMP v4. I hope that works. It's not recognized. So, oh, sorry, I think I see where the issue is. So this, I should probably have, I should put this here. What am I typing wrong? New firewall. So let me just, let me just type this on a notepad and see what I'm actually typing wrong. So let me open a notepad on my other screen. I just want to be sure what I am typing is correct, because somehow this is actually big for my eye, the screen. So I am just going to copy what I have on this place and paste it. I don't know if I'm seeing correctly. It's not recognized. Oh, sorry. Apologies for this. I just know what's happening. I should be typing this on I should be typing this on PowerShell. Sorry about that. So let me just pull my PowerShell and type this command. So yeah, so that's actually command prompt. Yeah, so this should actually work now. Yes, so it's actually, so I actually typed it right. it was just I was using the wrong this thing. So now I'm going to just do my ping again. So this is it, and you can see that this machine can now communicate with this other machine now. Like the virtual machine in this network can now communicate with this. If I try to ping this other machine, I will still have the same issue, but the what I just need to do is to disable firewall here. And if I want to probably do that, I can as well just let me just say control panel. So if I go there and I choose to also do, I can come to network and let me, oh sorry, not there. So, or let me just do it this way. Instead of going, let me just type my firewall and yeah. So I can come here and just say turn off sorry, this should be, yeah. So if I do this, it's still the same thing I'm actually doing. So if I come down to this again and I do the IP config, sorry, the ping, and I am trying to ping 10.80.0.5, right? So I should be able to ping that network. So the last part of this, I want to probably connect to the other VM using the private IP address. So I can come here and just type this. So this is going to be 10.70.0.5. Yep. So if I hit enter, yep, you can see is asking me for the username and password. So all I just need to do is type the username and password, and I should be in this other VM. So let me just look at this. This is 80 and 80 is new. So this is probably going to be again. So if I come here and just type Gira again, and I'm typing my password for that machine. So you can see I am actually connected to the other virtual machine using, so I'm actually using the private IP to connect to that virtual machine, and this is already disconnected. So the reason I'm doing that is actually because of the virtual network pairing. So for now, I think I'm going to stop here and I can now go ahead to answer questions that I have in the chat.
Perfect. That was awesome. Awesome. It's a good test and a good demo. Thank you. Thank you so much, Solomon.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
so I'm going to just put here one of the questions. There is from Prathap. I hope I pronounce well the name. So there is a question.
Okay. Oh, so I think I already did I think probably you asked this question before the demo. So because I just did that now, right? Yeah, so the benefits basically is you're not going to be it's just more like you're using one network instead of separate network, and the resources they can actually communicate between themselves. And when they're actually communicating between themselves, they are not using the public internet. You know, when you actually create a VPN gateway and these resources, they're communicating among themselves, you're going to be doing this with the public internet. But with virtual network pairing, this is going to be happening through the Microsoft backbone infrastructure, and it's going to be private.
Perfect. Okay, we can then go to the next one. I think there is actually just one more. That one comes from Peter. So there it is.
Yeah, so you can actually create this between two tenants, right? And this is something I actually want to I'm planning on writing about. So basically, when you want to do this, all you need to do is you need to have two users, right? One user in the first tenant and the second user in the second tenant. So let me say we have Gira headquarters as a tenant, and then we have Gira branch as another tenant. So we'll have two users there. And now these two users will make them guests in this tenant. So a user from the branch and a user from the headquarters, we make them guests in each tenant, and we are going to we are going to create the virtual network on each of these tenants. Then these users that we are making guests, we are going to assign them the network contributor role. And once we grant them that, assign them that role, what we'll be doing is we just need the resource ID. So if you go to the virtual network, you can always pick the resource ID. And once we pick those resource ID, we can log in with those users, create the virtual network pairing using the resource ID, and then we can authenticate with those users. With that, we can create a pairing between two tenants. So that's how you can actually create it. So it's something that I'm actually looking forward to just create a demo or write about.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. So, Solomon, just to finish, before to finish, would you like to share maybe your social media or where the people can find you in case they have any
So
questions?
So my social media, yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there to answer questions. I have a lot of questions coming from LinkedIn, and yeah, I'm always there. Yeah, in terms of response time, I have a very fast response time. Once you're asking me a question, in few minutes, you'll see me giving you a response.
And
So
online.
you can just search Solomon Jeremiah on LinkedIn. I think I should be among the top 5 people answering that name because we are few.
That's very good. And I have to say, you have a good audience today. So, congratulations. And thank you so much for your time. Because I know just to prepare, the material, your presentation, to have some time to share your knowledge is pretty good. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I see a question. I think there's one more question. So,
There is one.
um,
Yeah, sorry about it.
okay, yeah. So for this, right, what's in terms of bandwidth, right? There's no limit to the bandwidth. The only limit you're going to have in terms of bandwidth limit is your virtual machine. So when you're creating a virtual machines, you have different sizes for virtual machines, right? And most of those virtual machines, they have their restrictions in terms of bandwidth. So you can probably be creating a virtual machine, and the restriction for that particular virtual machine might be 1,500, right? So that is the exact bandwidth limit you'll be having, but it's not as a result of the VNet that pairing you created. It is the bandwidth limit is actually coming from the virtual machine size you selected. So you're not going to be having like restrictions. The restriction is actually going to come from your virtual machine.
That's great. That's great. So now I'm just gonna double check. I'm not missing any question from the chat. I think that's all of them. That's yeah, that's it. So perfect. So
Yeah.
is there anything else you would like to add before we finish?
Nothing else. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And also, I want to thank everyone out there that took their time to listen to this topic, and those that also contributed by asking questions. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
So hopefully to see you soon. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Well, and now we're just in time to keep going with the next session. So welcome back for those who still watching this in Gira LATAM and Europe. And welcome to the ones who are just joining us at the moment. So before to bring our next speaker, I'm just going to share my screen here. And as you can see, I hope this is going to be a challenge. to pronounce his name. So his name is Prathap Reddy, and he will share a session about Azure AI studio. So I'm just gonna bring him here to the screen.
Hey, hi.
Hi, hi,
I'm yeah,
Prathap.
Pratap.
I try my best to pronounce it.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
are
no
you?
problem. Yeah, I'm fine. How about you?
Very good,
Yeah,
very
so
good. Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah,
No, thank you for joining us today. I know over there because I think well, you told me you're based in India, so at the
yes,
moment
yes.
it's just midnight over there. It's actually the next day. It's very
Yeah,
late for you.
yeah, no problem at all. So there is a lots of members that we are enthusiastic with the latest technology. So I'm ready to help in 24/7.
No, thank you for that. Really, really
Yeah,
appreciate your participation in here.
yeah,
So, would you like to share to tell us a little bit about yourself?
yeah, sure. So can I share my screen and then I
Yes,
can
of
move?
course.
Yes, okay.
And in the meantime that you're getting your screen ready, just I want to remind everybody who's watching to put any questions, leave them on the chat, and we will cover them at the end of the presentation. And just also let us know where you're based, where you're from at the
So
moment, so we can know about you. Yeah,
so I
sorry.
think my screen is visible to everyone.
It's ready. Perfect. There it is.
I think is it fine, Blaze?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, is it fine?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well,
Yeah,
you
okay.
might need to put play on the presentation because we can see only, the full PowerPoint.
Yeah, okay. So 1 second. I think it's fine or something.
No, not yet. We're still looking at your slides.
Yeah. 1 second, 1 second.
So, guys who are watching, go and grab a glass of water in the meantime, just for you to enjoy this session.
Okay, okay, okay. Is it fine? Can I share my screen with the same preview?
You want me maybe to remove and try again? Let's see. 'Cause I can see the PowerPoint slides, but we cannot see the
Okay, okay,
play
wait,
mode.
wait. Okay, okay.
It might be in a second screen, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, okay. Fine. So,
No worries, no worries. Take your
yeah.
time. Don't be stressed. Just relax. In the meantime, more people is joining soon.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I think for your last question, it's for Solomon, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm talking just one of the guys in the chat. He made a one more question.
Yes, so I think I don't know exactly. So my screen is so I'm
It's not showing, right? Well, no problem. Unless you want just maybe make a little bit of zoom on the screen.
okay, okay, fine, fine. 1 second. I just want to add slides and then I can.
No worries.
Yeah. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries.
Yeah.
Take your time. And for the guys in the chat, Peter was making some questions. So I think that's for Solomon. So if that's the case, we will just send it to him and let him know about the question.
I think now it's fine.
Now I think it's fine. Yeah, it might be
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, just a second. I think it's just not coming just yet. Just 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me remove my. Perfect. So yeah, I think because of the time, I will just hand over to you if you're ready, and then you can start with your introduction and telling us about yourself. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So can I move
Okay.
ahead?
Yeah, just one more. Sorry, one last question. Would you like to get the questions from the chat when they are happening, or would you like to leave them at the end of the presentation
So I can answer them every question in the end of the session.
during the presentation? Yeah,
Yeah, no,
perfect.
end of the session.
Okay.
Yeah. So can I go ahead?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead and enjoy.
So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. So especially, so hi everyone, those who are joining from the wherever the world. So I'm from India. So thank you so much for joining the session. So today we are talking about the Azure AI Studio. So thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity for the especially the Cloud Launch and Land and the Gira Online. So I just move ahead. So thank you so much for the Gira Online Speakers Latam 2023 events. So every year they are conducting the wonderful opportunities for they given I mean lots of sessions about the Azure and the different technologies and everything about the new era of the AI like that. So today I want to present the Azure AI Studio. Yeah, you know, so we can discuss some more about the Azure AI Studio. So I would like to thank about the Giro Online Speakers. Giro Online Speakers, and yeah, this is my brief intro about who I am. So I'm working as an associate consultant and and also as a I'm a data engineer at Evident. Previously, it will be like so Atos, so everyone knows about the Atos company is one of the MNC companies. So that then it will be so evident. So I'm an author, I'm a blogger, I'm a speaker. So I hold the 6x Azure certifications. So especially, so these are not the my main achievements. So recently I hold the C Sharp Corner C Sharp Corner most valuable professional award. That is a huge for me. And thank you so much so those who are joining, so if you want to reach out me in the latest technologies and whatever it may be the chat GPT-4 and build a 2023 events on relay technology, Azure and everything. So feel free to reach out to me as Salvan already says that. So I'm always feel free to connect with the people in the LinkedIn. So I'm also I'm every time so the 24 by 7 please to connect with me and definitely I will answer to whatever the questions that you have. So this is a brief intro about me and let's move on to the session. This is a very 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 fantastic session. So I'm going to present in front of you. So what is so today we can discuss about the Azure AI Studio. You know Azure, the name Azure. So the world in the IT technologies and we have the different platforms. Different cloud computing platforms in different companies like Azure for the Microsoft and AWS for the Amazon and GCP for the Google and Alibaba for the Alibaba Cloud. So these are not the different clouds. So in that show, Azure is I like Azure. Cloud computing is very much in. So because we have the infinite number of opportunities, infinite number of to different concepts that where every time they will introduce different concepts and everything. That I love the Azure. So in that manner, so Azure, the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella recently in the May 2023, so he introduced to very very 50 plus the new products in that the five are very very important. In that five products, I love the Azure AI Studio is a very 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 wonderful service that I have ever seen. Okay, So before we moving to the Azure AI Studio, we can learn about what is Azure AI Studio service. Okay, our new AI Studio is the full life cycle developer toolchain for the new era of AI and can train your own models and ground AI models. Yes, of course, the Azure AI Studio they fulfill the life cycle developers can. I mean, this is a new era for the AI. So the how the artificial intelligence look up with the different technologies and everything. So how they can analyze the concepts from the users and everything that will be happening in the Azure AI Studio. Okay. So now, one second, guys. Yeah. So Azure AI Studio is a cloud-based service that makes easy for the developers all the skill levels to build a. Yes, of course. So if you are the developers, if you want to build the AI applications by using the Azure Studio, it is very easy to do. That is the fantastic service that we ever seen in any cloud computing. That is so it is very easy to understand. So even though in the end of the session, I would like to play the one of the YouTube video if it don't mind for this speaker. So I would like to ask to Sam that I will play the demo video that will be introduced by the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. That will be very fantastic. So if you want to, so in the quick demo also I will show you the different concepts and everything. You can analyze what is the AI Studio. So don't forget that. So Azure AI Studio is very uh, important for the future also. Okay, so I believe that we have the six principles that guide the AI development and user. Yes, of course. So we have the different concepts and so every I mean every AI development so we have to use and we have to utilize for the AI development. We have they are the different concepts, they are the different principles. In that we are the mainly for the AI Studio we have the six main principles in that fairness. So in the fairness also for example, you have the harm, I mean fairness I don't know exactly how can I say that. So we have any harmfulness from the Azure AA from that it can be detected by the fairness by the these six principles in that they will detect further. And one of the principle is the reliability and safety. The reliability and safety is very I mean so if for example if the I mean the AI can be move ahead and develop some the tools and models and the prompt flows and everything, it will be very crucial principle that will be acted like that. And then privacy and security, yes, of course it is the main principle. So so whenever we have to go ahead, I mean so for example I'm working as the evidence, so I have some crucial information that we look up into. So for example that I mean that's I mean for example I don't know exactly how can I say that. So for example that project is very confidential, so we bother about the privacy and security. That's why this AI can help with privacy and security and inclusiveness. As of course that inclusiveness will also improve the in the principle. And transparency, yes, of course the transparency make sure that it will be helpful for the AI development and use and accountability as the main agenda for the six principles of the I mean AI development and use and everything that will be able to do. And the Azure AI Studio that makes sure that accountability is very plays a crucial role in the Azure AI Studio. So make sure, I mean one thing I have to add something like is that accountability means for example as a some of the guys are I mean very government officers as the I mean political chief I mean chiefs of companies, and they have at least they need the accountability to grade and they have to guide the people, they have to train the people. So so same thing as AI, they need accountability to develop the models, to use the models, to train the models and everything. These are the six principles. So I believe that these are the six principles to use for the AI, and that will be developed by the every individual, every developer, so then contribute also to the projects and everything and end to end. So in that manner, I have to show you that end to end. For example, from the beginning of the Azure AI Studio to from the end of the Azure AI Studio, what they can do really happen. So in that manner, also we have the data loading. So in the data loading and the data preparation, model training, model deployment, AI coverage. So these are the five main portfolio of the end to end of the Azure AI Studio. So these are the main concepts. So we can discuss in the move forward. And data loading, yeah. So what is the data loading? So everyone says that so data loading, so we have to train the before we have to train the any model, so we need to some raw data or basic data. So whatever the data we have, so we need to the first priority is the data loading. Azure AI Studio allows you to load the data from the various sources such as Azure Blob Storage, Azure Data Lake, and SQL databases. Yes, we have the data from the data warehouses or the sources. So we have lots of sources like Blob Storage and Data Lake and databases. So these all are the basic. In Azure, we have said that this is the basic sources from the extraction of the data, and it handles the data types, formats, and schemas automatically, such as don't have worry about the data completely. Yes, of course. So for example, we have to extract from the data, so we are not bothered about there is any data completely issue during this Azure AI Studio. So it has the different formats like whether it is a TXT format, it is XLS formats, also, I mean different format extension formats. So we don't bother about it. So we need to everything that will be allows in the data loading. And the data loading process, so one more point I have to add is Azure AI Studio recognize a file that types and formats loaded them into the data frame that could use for the further analysis. Yes, of course. So, for example, they will recognize that. So, whether it is suit for this data loading for with the data. I mean, for example, if you want to build a one data, I mean, a developer to in the AI Studio. So, first of all, the Azure AI Studio recognize that whether it is suitful, suit this opportunity. I mean, suit this skill tool. So, whether sorry, so whether we move forward and everything. So first of all, they recognize the file types and formats and load it into the data frame that can further analysis. Sorry. And second step is the data preparation. In the data preparation, there are the main three concepts. So that is sorry, yeah, Azure AI Studio previously built in tools for data quality, missing qualities and outlets and feature engineering. Yeah. In the data preparation, so for example, Azure AI Studio provides the building tools. So for example, building tools is inbuilt functions or output functions or whatever it may be. They need for the data quality, and data quality means, for example, they need just on data. So the missing values or outlets. So if there is any missing value, so that can be. I mean, for example, data quality means that so they cannot. So for example, in the right data we have the strong data, the weak data. So we need to they have to recognize it. Before that we have in the data room we say that they first of all the Azure Studio will recognize that whether the data quality, whether the missing values, outlets, and feature engineering, everything that will be building tools for the data quality. Okay, in the data preparation. And the second step is you can use the Azure Machine Learning Designer Preview. Okay, so which can update the drag and drop interface to the perform the data preparation task visually. Okay, for example, yeah. So you can use the Azure machine learning. So for example, we have the ML. So in the ML, we have the different create the different prompt flows and different models. So we have to create it and we have to train the models in the data preparation after the data loading and data preparation. In the quick demo, I have to show you the how Azure AI will help in the ML prompt flows. Okay, and the third step in the data preparation is I also use it to the Python SDK to resize and normalize the image data such as cropping, rotational. So, for example, in the Azure AI Studio, we have the new after the build 2023, we have new more option is called the DALI. So in the DALI, so we have the I mean prompt is like that is so we have to create the images, we have to generate the images. In that we have to normalize any image. For example, it is like a rectangle, we have to make it as a square. If it is a square, we have to make it as a rectangle. If it is a triangle, it is make it as a. So whatever the requirement, so that will be happen for according to your requirements. You need to research by using the Python SDKs. Okay, software development kit. And one second, and move forward to model training. So model training means so you have to train the model. So for example, we have the different model training, so in the Azure AI and Azure ML and so AI applications, everything. So we have to make sure that we have to train the one model. Okay, so for example, Azure AI supports the different algorithms and frameworks for the model training such as skitlearn and TensorFlow and PyTorch, etc. So yeah, so we have to train the different models like skitlearn and TensorFlow and PyTorch. So these all are the different model trainings that we have to move ahead and we have to train according to the as per your requirement. And also it also provides the features such as automated machine learning, which automatically selects the best algorithms and hypermates for your data. Yeah, this is also this makes sense like that that will be happening automatically selects the best hypermates of your data. And and also provides a feature such as model explainability, which helps you to understand how model makes you predict and identify the basis of the error. So for example, if there is an errors are detecting in whether on the ongoing of the model training, so it will be detects and it will be trained whether. So if you have the bugs, you have to clear that, you have to make sure that everything that will be happening in sequence manner, step by step manner of the data loading, data preparation and model training. And then and the next stage is the model deployment. So after the model training, we have to make sure that the training will be make sure that making it to the deployment model. Yeah, Azure AI Studio allows you to deploy the models in various endpoints such as web service, containers, edge devices. Yes, of course. So this is the real time in test cases that we have to see in the model deployment such as web services, containers, edge, and it also provides us features such as management, which helps you track, update your models over the time. Yeah. So we have the different models that we have to make sure that the track and update the models at every over the time means. So for example, that will be time will be continuous time. It will be like from the beginning to the end. So I don't know exactly. So for example, it is the consistent time between the 2 hours. From the track time between the from the starting point to end point, it will take. It update time to time from the starting to end time. It also provides the features such as model monitoring, which helps to collect the matrices logs and model production. So model monitoring means we have to observe. So the entire deployment is completely into the service and everything in the Azure AI Studio. That is the one more feature that we are able to see in this model deployment after. So we have to make sure that we have to complete the model preparation, model sorry data loading and data preparation, model training and model deployment. And then the fifth one is AI Copilot creation. In the AI Copilot creation, so Azure AI Studio lets you create own AI Copilot using conversational AI models such as Copilot, ChatGPT, and ChatGPT 4. Yeah, of course we have the different, different AI Copilot reactions creations such as AI models such as OpenAI, ChatGPT, and GPT-4. So we have these type of Copilot creations. So we need to make sure that this will be very helpful to in the further. Create for the deployment stages, and also it provides such a user-friendly interface, customize the Copilot personality, domain knowledge and responses. So that Copilot in the so Windows, so after the build 2023 event, we have the one more feature that is called AI, Windows Copilot, that will be very very helpful for the. So that Windows Copilot also we are this model will be the trained and the deployment into that Windows Copilot also. And these all are the. So now we can make sure that this is the Microsoft AI protocol. Okay, uh, how the business user and citizen developers. So we have the different applications in the Microsoft, for example, uh, Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics 365, Microsoft the Edge, Microsoft being Windows and Xbox. So these all are the different applications of the Microsoft and different Power platforms. For example, Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Virtual Agent. So these all are the different. So these all are mainly based for the business users and citizen development. And coming to AI, Azure AI. So we have the Azure AI. So we have applied AI services and the cognitive services and ML platform. So these all are the comes from the artificial Azure artificial intelligence, developers and the data scientists to make sure that these developers are go forward to the applied AI services and cognitive services. In the Azure AI services, Azure applied AI services. So we have the different services like bot services, cognitive search, and form recognizer, video indexer, matrix service, immense region. So these all are the different services that we look into the Azure AI. And one more thing is that the cognitive services. And the cognitive services, this is very, very important. That this is the main thing that we are discussing about it. And vision, speech, language, decision, and OpenAI service. So these all are the main platforms of the Azure AI cognitive services. So that is called cognitive services in Azure OpenAI. So in the so we right now why we need to call it as Azure AI means so that the OpenAI will be make sure that it will be transferred as the Azure AI Studio. And then that is ML platform. So machine learning platform, that is the machine learning studio that we are so looking forward it. So this is the main concept. Don't forget it, and we will. So I have in the blur video. So so for example, assume that we are the user. Okay, so we have one user. So we need to go make sure that we have to go make an query that will be went to the cognitive search. So that cognitive search, so what they need in the cognitive search, we have the different sources like a file format, CSV formats, databases, and Excel files and everything. So if you have a query related to the any file format, that will be appear into the cognitive search. Okay, so that will be happening within the server. Okay. For example, in the same server, we have the prompt and the responses. For example, we need to create the prompt flows and the responses by using the Azure OpenAI. So this will be that will be happening in the from the user to OpenAI. This is called the end-to-end. This is the data loading to the deployment. So that will be happening in between these scenarios. So like okay, so from the whether the user is a server connected with the server, that will be both the Azure Cognitive Search and OpenAI. So this is the business use. So this is the developers and the data scientists that will be looking into this queries and related things. And AI Playground Studio. Okay, so what are the basic? For example, so I don't know exactly. Yeah. No, Azure Playground. So in the Azure Playground, what are the main things that we have to see? So Azure Playground, we have to chat. So everybody knows that the chat means so Azure AI chat, AI chat. So everyone knows about the Chat GPT. So how the LLM works. So that can be previewed. So I can preview the how the Chat GPT works in the Azure, or how the chat will be works in the Azure AI Studio. I will show you. And the completion. So there we have the different completions, the different scenario, the different concepts. So we have to move forward it, and we have to make sure that we have to make train some models. Okay, and then a DALI. So DALI model, so we have image generator model also is there, and bring your own data. For example, you have your own data like so we have the set of data that will be under several different extensions like txt, csv, or whatever the files you have. So you need to train your own data into the some models. So that will be happen also in the Azure AI. So this is the new feature that will be these are the two new features that will be added after the build 2023 event. Okay. Ah, and so this is the announcement of the Azure AI Studio of the Mr. Satya Nadella, the CEO of the Microsoft. So in the Azure AI Studio, there are the few features that will be so build and train your own model. So, for example, you have one model, you have to create the own models in the Azure AI Studio, and ground your Azure OpenAI service and OSS models in your world. So, for example, you have the different concepts and you have the different data. So, you need to make sure that the OpenAI service and OSS models using your own data to make sure that we have to Azure AI Studio will help us in the different manners, and build in and vector indexing. Yeah. So for example, you need to build a vector indexing like in the different concepts. So for example, you have to train in the same model in for one scenario. You have to make sure that you have to use that the developers are using the Azure AI Studio in the build in that manner only, vector indexing model. And one more thing is the retrieval and augmented generator made easy. Yes, so we have to make sure and augmented generation made easy. Let's see. So for example, the retrieval mode in the different concept like Azure AI Studio. So for example, uh, that will be like end-to-end process. So that will be happen, and create prompt workflow. So the create prompt workflows means that will be happening mainly in the machine learning and content safety and everything. So that content safety is AI safety building and everything that will be happening in the from the machine learning and the Azure AI Studio, and as well as the AI Studio. That will be everything that will be work according to the Azure AI Studio in the these are the new features that will be comes after the build 2023 event. And management. So how the Azure AI Studio will manage all these things. So for example, so we have the different deployment models, deployment. So for example, the deployment in the different scenarios. Like for example, let's see. Um, so we have to deploy the same concept in the different situations. So the different situations, so make sure that will be happening with the same deployment model, and that the models. So different models we have. So data files and quotas means that will be happening like a subscription, and what are the resources that will be happen from the that will be comes from the quotas, and content filters. So for example, content filters means for example, you have the raw data in the Excel format. You need to filter that. So you need to gather the information. You don't want the unwanted data. You need to filter the content. You need to make sure that that will be happening, and so whatever the data you need, so that will be filter the data by using the Azure AI management only. so that how the AI can be work according to the deployments and the models and the data flows and the quotes and content filters. Yeah, these all are the managements of the Azure AI Studio and a few more features of the Azure AI models. Yeah. So these all are the main Azure AI Studio models. For example, Speech Studio, Language Studio, Custom Translator, Vision Studio, Form Recognizer, Content Safety, Azure ML. Yeah. So these are Azure AI Studio models. For example, Speech Studio means in the Speech Studio, for example, we have Speech Studio, or it will automatically audible for the each and every email. For example, you have in the text to format. You need to make sure that the data will be make sure that transfer. Converted into from the text to speech. So we train the model and we have the collect the data. We have to train the model, and that will be happen from the we have the one passage from the English, one passage from the Telugu, whatever it may be. So different languages. So that will be make sure that that speech will be we have to train that model and make sure that that will be converted from the text to speech. That will be happen in the speech studio and language studio. For example, in the language studio, for example, in the world we have the different languages or different monopolies or bilinguals are there. So we need to make sure that so for example, I have an Azure documentation in the in the Indian language. I have to convert into the English. So for okay, I have to convert. So I have to first of all I need to extract the data in the Indian language. So that will be storage in the one some containers, and then that will be move forward, and then that will be trained some models, and then it will be converted from the one Indian language to English model. And same that a custom translator. So for example, same thing that will be happen whatever the language studio that will be. So that will be happening in the custom translator model. That is too relevant to in the language, speech, and custom translator. In the Vision Studio, for example, in the Vision Studio, for example, we have to train the one deployment model. For example, there is any, for example, we went to any shopping mall, for example. So what are the equipment we have to say? We have to train the model. For example, we have to click on the sofas, we have to click on the monitors, we have to click on the persons, we have to click on the different, whatever the equipment we have to see in this video. We need to train that model. We have to make sure that that will be very full flexibility. We have to see that that Vision Studio is very important in the Azure AI models also. And form recognizer, in the form recognizer. So for example, you have to train some of the forms. For example, this is very important. For example, the form recognizer is mainly used in the hospitality. So for example, in the hospitality, so no one will detect that 100% accuracy is whether the person is having the illness about this heart disease or lung disease and whatever it may be. But the Azure AI Studio will make sure that the accuracy level will be the 95%. This is the very we have to appreciate the Azure AI Studio and the Microsoft company for the form recognizer. That accuracy level it is very important. And content safety. So the content safety means we need that safety security of the every Azure AI models that we are able to deploy them and Azure ML. So that is a very important Azure machine learning. This is also very the crucial model that we have to look up into the demo model. Okay, and applications. Yeah. So let's see. So we have the different applications in the Azure. That is content moderation. So we have the content moderations in that. So we have the different concepts. We have to make sure that I need, for example, I have to make sure that, for example, please give me the 10 slides of Azure AI Studio. So they will give some data content moderation. They will create the content moderation according to that how user friendly it was. And conversational AI. So we have conversational AI. So for example, it is not behaving like a AI and a human. It is like a human to human interaction. It will be like that. So that's why it was very fantastic whether we have to using in this Azure AI Studio and machine learning. Yeah, machine learning. So in the machine learning also we have to use this Azure AI Studio and the cognitive services. So in this form applications we have to use this Azure AI Studio in this two machine learning and cognitive services. So in the cognitive and the machine learning we have the concepts that will be very familiar to each and every in machine learning and cognitive services. So now we can move forward. There's some quick demos about this Azure AI Studio. Okay, I think demo please. So there's a Charlie Chaplin. Okay, now I can move for the okay. I just move for the okay. I think my screen is visible to all of you. Okay, so this is the Azure to preview of those who are using this Microsoft Azure. So in this Azure Yeah, one second. Yeah. So first we need. So I have used my friend's Azure account. So you need to log in with your credentials. So you need to give your email ID, credit card. So you need to give. So first to one, we need to observe in the Azure studio. That is, so we need the subscription. So without subscription we cannot able to do anything. So I have the 2800 credit limit remaining. I have the trained the different models during this month. So now we can move forward the Azure AI Studio. So in the Azure AI Studio, where we can observe this Azure AI Studio. So we just to make sure that we can find on just search on Azure OpenAI or Azure. So I'm already having Azure OpenAI. Just to open this Azure AI. So I'm already created the different resource services in on Azure AI Studio. So if you want to create the Azure AI service, for example, just click on the create. Yeah. So in that model, so if you want to create the, I mean, for example, you have to create. So you have to select the subscription. So whether it is a free trial or the pay as you go, or you need to select the demo. So I just selected as a demo. I have the different resource group in that. So after that, we need to select the region. So we have the different regions in all over the world. In that, we have to select that according to your requirement, and you have to train one model like. Gira 2023. So I just given the name as a Gira, and the pricing tier will be standard, and then click on the next. Okay. In that, so just to make sure that the default everything will be default one, and I don't want to bother about it. And then the final after the validation, it will be uh, everything will be fine. Okay, it will be after the validation is completed. We just go through the create button, tap on the create button. So once we tap on the create button, it will be move for the deployment model. So once the deployment is completed, we need to move for the Azure AI Studio, and we have to look forward it. Okay. So let's see. Now it will take some time. It will take few minutes, like 1 to 2 minutes. Yeah, this will be a deployment is in progress. Sorry. Yeah, it will take some time. Please be patient. So in that, so I have already created some Azure, I mean OpenAI model. So before that, so I have already this type of, I mean already created some services in Azure AI. So I just want to click on one service. Okay, okay. Now I just want to click on the explore. So this is the actual Azure. So Azure AI Studio interface. So this is the interface of the Azure AI Studio. This is where we can see that it is the. So before that, so this is we said Azure OpenAI. So after we tap onto the explore button, it will be reflected as a Azure AI. So after the build 2023 event, that OpenAI name will be renamed as a Azure AI Studio. OpenAI Studio will be like a Azure AI Studio. So this is the new interface. In the before that we have the only a few editions. After that we have the some more features will be added into the Azure AI. So that's why that will make sure that it will be act like a Azure AI Studio. Okay. In that, so we have that chart, and we have the completions, we have the daily preview and deployment models and the data files and quotas and content filters. So these all are the different management files that we are already discussing about this, some of the previews in the PPT. Okay. So for example, I have to give the chart. This is the actual LLM of large language model that we are looking into the Azure AI Studio. Before in the chat GPT is already know, everyone know about the how chat GPT works. Same thing, for example, I just want to type a text like say hi. Let's see how they can respond. Yeah, I just make sure that I just given the command like hi. they can give in the command like, hello, how may I assist you today? Yeah, okay. So for example, I just want to ask like, what is Azure? So I just given the some commands like, so how they will give the how they interact with the user friendly. So they can give them like, I just given the command like, what is Azure? The Azure Cloud Computing is a platform created by the Microsoft. So this is they given some content. So this is how the Chat GPT works. I mean, Chat will work in Azure AI in this Azure. Okay. So after this is the basic train model. After the train, everything that will be moved to the users. So how the users will be nowadays using the Chat GPT and everything. So after that, so completions. So in the completion, so we have the different deployment models. And so I already created the cloud launch deployment. So in that we have, for example, we have the different completions. For example, let's see. So we have the few, I mean, 20 plus services. In that I have to uh, generate an email. Just tap on the generate an email. So I just want to clear everything or to write a mail to my boss. I'm on leave tomorrow. Okay. Let's see. I just want to generate, tap on the generate button. How? So they are creating some content about generating an email, comment from the session that to generate a contact. So they will create some content according to the requirement. And so, for example, so here we see that. Let's see. So it will I mean, it will train some model, so it create a deployment, and it will generate a lot of information after creating everything. And I just create one more model. So for example, generate a quiz. So for example, you just tap on the generate button. So it will take some time to create everything. So according to the models they will create. So I just want to, it will take some time, but yeah. So it will create some models like, so they'll create some quiz models based on this scenario. Okay, so we have the scenario in the some sentences. So in the scenario they will create some questions, and also they create some options. So and also they are given the answers also. So like that we have the some completions, that is chat is there, completion is there. So we have the completions in the different completions like different concepts. So these are the different so completions. So for example, natural language to SQL. I just want to create this one. Yeah. So it don't bother about it. It simply create everything. So this is the how Azure AI is. So they will create like Postgres SQL tables with their properties. So this is how they, everything. I mean, playground works. Everything that will according to the according to Azure AI Studio rules, it will be work accordingly. So this is how the completion models. So we have the different completion models, and for example, and the DALI. So this is after build 2023 event. The DALI preview, I mean playground will be appear in this GPT. I mean in Azure. Yeah. So before that, everyone has to move for this DALI model, DALI 2 model. So if you want to train the models and if you want to give some comments, they will create it. So now I'm also giving some kind of like. Uh, so I am also given some user-friendly questions. So how to create, how DALI will create some images according to your models. For example, uh, lion rides a car. I just want to give the one command like this. Yeah, so it will take some time. So for example, I'm already created a person name is Reddy who is playing PUBG. Yeah, so I'm given the command like a lion rides a car. So this is how AI will So this is how lion. I mean, so for example, I given the command lion rides a car. The lion rides a car means the AI will analyze that the lion is an animal that will be rides a car. This is analyzed by the AI. So the AI will create the image generate. I mean, image generator. So this is the DALI is the image generator. If you want to give any I mean command, they will create according to your commands only. They will create one image. So these images are not found in any search engines like browsers and Google. I mean Google or Google Chrome or Firefox, whatever the search engines we have, we cannot find any images. So these images are everything that belongs to user only. The copyrights belongs to user only. If you want to create a different images, if you want to sell that images into the different companies and everything, that every images is very user friendly, and that will be copyright belongs to you only. This is the new preview of the DALI model. Okay, so for example, and deployment. Okay. So how the deployment works? Okay, deployment models. So in the deployment models, so for example, this is the deployment. How can we create? We can create the one deployment model. So just tap on the create models, and you just to make sure that you can select if you have any deployment. So for example, if you want to create one GPT-3.5 Turbo, or else text models or everything. So whatever the model, if you want to create and you want to create the new features into the Azure AI Studio, you need to go for this deployment model. And so these all are the so about this deployment in the management. Okay, in the train model, so what are the models we have already trained? So for example, in the GPT 3.5, and so these all are the some basic models were already trained by the Microsoft Azure AI Studio, that will be look up into this Azure Open AI. Okay, we have to train this, we have to go through this Azure AI models and everything. And let's see, and what are the data files we have. And so for example, okay, if you want to upload any data, if you want to, if you want to go through that, if you want to, so if you want, for example, there is some different type different concepts of data are there, like for example extension data, so the Excel formats and CSV formats. So we have to train that own data. So for example, you have a data that will be belongs to you only, so you need to make sure that you have to make sure that using that Azure AI Studio, make test that testing and training that data sets by using this Azure AI. Like how can I say that? For example, I have some raw data. Using this raw data, you can make sure that you have to make one proper project. So that will be happening in this testimonial and training data sets. And quotas. So quotas means in quotas, so we have the different concepts. So we have to make sure that let's see, 1 second. We have to. I'm already use this model. Let's see, we have the, this is the, I have in the quota, so make sure that we have the free trial subscription, and region we have to select. So what are the region we have, and after that, so what is the quota name and deployment, unlimited usage, and response queue. So everything that will be avail in this one. So for example, token per minutes in the GB35, in the which, I mean which resource we have to use it in the MLO or cloud launcher. So everything that will be available in this quotas. And content filters. So for example, content filters means if you want to have any data that will be not so if you filter the data, for example, you need only basic, limited version of data. For example, you have the data as a class of data, for example, girl's name, boy's name, teacher's name. For example, if you want to particular subject who scored the highest marks only, you need that. So you need to train that model, you need to content the filter. For example, I need the only marks on the Microsoft Azure. So for example, you need to make sure that given the commands, and that will be happen by using this content filter configuration. So that is the whole thing about this Azure AI. So how the Azure AI Studio will work. So this is the ChatGPT playground and the ChatGPT completion and bring your own data and the DALI playground. So everything. So this is the Azure AI Studio is a very, it was very fun. Whether we have to use any model in the Azure AI. So for example, if you want to build any model, you have to train model, you have to do everything. That is very easy. Okay, that is belongs to Azure AI. So we have created some models. So we are creating. So for example, in the DALI, DALI is the very important model. So after the Bill 2023, right? So DALI will help to everyone. Before that, in the OpenAI company, they will give the only few credentials. After that, no one will. After the so in this preview model, so you have to create n number of images. So for example, I have to create one more images like okay, rabbit rides a bike. I have to give in the command like this. So let's see how the AI will analyze the get the given command and how they can generate the image. So we have to look up it. Rabbit rides a car. Yeah, let's see. So this is the AI generated images. How the rabbit rides a bike according to the how the Azure and the Azure AI will analyze the commands from the user. So I'm given the command like only rabbit rides a bike. So after that, rabbit rides a bike. So this rabbit will be look up into like for example, let's see. So this Azure, you know, they analyze that. So the rabbit is a animal that will be rides a bike. So they will create like that. So this image we cannot find it any, in, any social media like in a browser or search engine everything. So that's why I love this Azure AI Studio. So we have to play with Azure AI Studio. It is very fun. So whenever we have to stress time, so we have to go come to this Azure AI and it will be really fun. And this is all about the Azure AI Studio. And we have few more services in the Azure AI. Let's see. So for example, let's see these are so we already discussing about the speech studio, language studio. Speech studio we have to convert in the speech to text and everything like that. In language studio we have to different languages we have to make sure that, and custom translator we have to convert from the Indian language to foreign languages, everything like that we have to make. In the vision studio it is like in the vision we have to make sure that it is a big part to the all the Azure AI. So, for example, you have to train the models and deployment, everything that will be Visual Studio it is very, and form recognizer, content safety, Azure AI Studio, and Azure Machine Learning. So these all are the different concepts of the Azure AI. So how the Azure AI will work in this Azure AI. So these services how they work in the Azure AI Studio, how they will become more efficient to train the models, how the developers will train the models, and how to analyze the AI to create everything like that. Let's see. So this is whenever we have the free time, we have to go through these models and we have to make sure that we utilize this time. Okay, and so now we can move for the machine learning, Azure AI ML. So just to make sure the tap on the machine Azure machine learning. So if you don't have any account ML account, I just want a new workspace. So I just want to create a new workspace. So just to go through the subscription, whether it is a free trial or the pay as you go, I just want to tap on the free trial. And resource group, just to make sure that just tap on the demo. Or if you want to create one more resource group, like just tap on the create button. Let's see. So if you don't want to create, or else if you want to give the name like Gira ML, I just given the command like this, and you can select the region. So if you want to make sure that that region will be okay, you need to go for that region only. We have already in 140 countries we have the 60 plus regions. We have to make sure that, and storage account we have to give. We have different storage accounts we have. So we need to select any storage account. So according to your ML requirement, storage requirement, or everything like that, you just want to select according to your requirement, and then tap on the networking, and everything will be default one only, and then just review and create. Once the deployment, validation is completed, you just want to go through the Azure ML Studio. Yeah, validation is completed. Okay, now validation is completed, and just tap on the create button. So once the tap on the create button, initializing the, so it will go for the deployment model. So it will automatically go for that one, and we have already tried how now how I can. So I just want to make sure that I just given the demo how to create the ML. Okay, now I'm already created one account that is ML Love. So I just want to go through that account only. So let's see. I want to tap on the ML and just to come to Launch Studio. Yeah, in the Launch Studio. Yeah, see. So So this is the whole machine learning studio platform. How the ML will work, how they can really work according to the I mean those situation. I mean like user-friendly situations and everything that will be work according. So we already discussed about this model catalog and notebooks. So this is we are not discussing about this model catalogs and automated ML and designer and prompt flow. So we just to make sure that, for example, we just to go through the prompt flow. Uh, yeah. Okay. So I just want to create one prompt flow, or already we have already different prompt flows. We just tap on the one prompt flow. Okay. For example, there is a one Q&A session. So this is how. So in the prompt flow, we have the different concept like okay, it is a basic model like a Q&A with own data using fast index. Okay, so in this false index, we have to make sure we have to create one LLM models, or we have to make sure that we have to make one create one prompt or SDK Python SDKs or more tools. We have to use this more features and add. So we have to give on the commands. We have to ask the questions and strings and whatever the values we have to add it and output also we have to. So this is the training model. So we have to train the prompt flow and everything. So this is the user friendly like so this is the Q&A of your own data. So you need to create a account. I mean you need to create the prompt flows according to the lookups and everything that will be happening. So this is so whether it is a LLM or a prompt flow or whether it is a Python or more tools we have to use in these scenarios. This is the whole things that will be so in this machine learning. So we have the different. They already trained some lookups of both the question and answers in their model catalog of this prompt flow. So for example they already so if you want to create LLM, if you want to create app on this one and you have to create some questions according to this and that everything that will be add an input or output of this every prompt flow that will be saw in this one. So for example I want to yeah okay I just want to so what is this and everything you just want to go through this or generate the embedding. So if you want to so according to this one only you just want to tap on this from the inputs to output lookups. So everything that will be based on this Azure ML prompt flows only. So this is very I mean very user friendly while after to build 2023 event. And also we have some more model CAD designers. So for example yeah I just want to confirm it. So if you want to create some pipelines or if you want to create some deployment models and everything that will be you just want to create according to your requirements only. If you want to you just want to tap okay okay I just want to so if you want to create one data sets I just want to give them like Gira data. I just given some. This is some raw data. Yeah. Like the tabular format. So whatever it may. So if we Azure form storage. So just want to make sure that and you just act. I mean, select some storage for type on storage path and yeah. Mm, yeah. Okay. 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 Browse the storage path. Selected path. So I think we don't have any storage spot. So this is how the really I mean this Azure will train the models by using this everything. So I don't have any storage spot. So skip data validation and yeah storage path is a container. Okay, you just give me on something like whatever, some raw data, and then we can make sure that everything will be. You just want to create something like create day one data set. Okay, you just once create everything. You just to make sure that you just create a some one pipeline according to your data. So after that, your data you just want to go through it. You just want to create models according to your requirements in the Azure AI using this Azure AI. This is about designing and ML. and automated ML. So if you want to automate it, like if you want to create a like a copilot versions that will be automated ML, if you want to create this automated ML job, and it's the same thing that will be happening like. So everything. So if you want to create one Gira data like that only, you just want to create everything. So like this form only, you just want to create by using this ML Studio, and so this is the notebook. So really, it was very helpful for each run. So for example, this is the one I have one note. I don't know exactly. Okay, if you want to create on files, new files, if you want to go through this, create this one and create new files. So this is like you just want to tap on this one and yeah. Okay, okay, 1 second. Okay, for example, create tabular data set. Okay, I just want to given the command like this. Okay, and then I just run the cell. I just given the only just I run the cell. It will take some time to reflect the data, and you need to enhance this. I mean, like how can I say that? Based on your requirements only, you need to. I mean, change your requirements. So if you want, for example, you want to train some model in the different way, like that only you can train the models and according to. So if you want to compose in the edit in Visual Studios and everything, that will be everything that will be look up into the this notebook. So this is that assets and the model training and everything. And in the model training we are already so in the meta AI, like so this is the Facebook llama and Azure Falcon. So these are the new versions that will be coming in the some few days. So these all are about Azure AI. So we have already discussed about the different concepts in the Azure AI Studio. This is about Azure AI machine learning. We have discussing about the prompt flows and the llamas and the OpenAI and everything. So that will be come into this one. And and now I just move to. I want to share one video with you guys. Okay, okay, okay. Share the screen. So okay, okay.
Introducing Azure AI Studio, a full lifecycle tool to build, customize, train, evaluate, and deploy the latest next generation models responsibly. With just a few clicks, developers can ground AI models with their structured and unstructured data to quickly and easily build customized, cutting edge conversational experiences for their customers. Developers can take advantage of a new model catalog that works with the popular models organizations use, including those from Azure OpenAI Service, Hugging Face, and many other open source models. With Prompt Flow, developers can combine relevant data from your organization and create a detailed prompt to get better results. Prompt Flow works with Foundation, internally developed or open source models, and uses popular open source tools, LangChain, and Semantic Kernel. And because the AI systems we build are designed to support our AI principles, with Azure AI Content Safety, we are making it easier for you to test and evaluate your AI deployments for safety. This is Azure AI Studio, the trusted tools you need to build the next generation of AI applications.
Yeah. So this is about my session today. So bless. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Is that is finished, or you want to share something else? Is that
Okay.
everything?
1 second. 1 second. Yeah. Sorry for the.
No
Yeah. Tell
problem.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Will you
is
please?
that your? You want to share something else in your presentation, or is that everything?
I don't want to say anything. So if you want to, feel free to reach out to me in the LinkedIn. I'm always ready to help you in the whatever the requirements in Azure AI. So definitely feel free to reach out to me. So we today we are discussing about the different concepts in the Azure AI Studio and as also Azure ML. So in the Azure AI and Azure ML, so this is the future of the every project. So that will be looking into this. So that's why, and as Mr. Satya Nadella, the CEO of the Microsoft, also especially they will. He can. How can I say that? Is the you may evaluate the only two features about this Azure AI Studio. So before that Azure AI Studio, so make sure and we everyone knows about the OpenAI. So OpenAI we have already OpenAI. Uh, Another company that will be already looking into the Azure. So after that, after the collaborating the OpenAI and Microsoft, we can make convert this OpenAI into Azure AI Studio. So in this Azure AI Studio, we have they are inbuilt functions like daily models and completions and trained models and everything that will be like. So if you have any doubts regarding in my session, please feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, so I'm already share. So after the session, I just want to ping my LinkedIn ID in the comment section. Feel free to reach out us. So I definitely
Definitely
help
do.
you. Yeah.
Definitely do it for sure. I'm just checking the chat and there is no questions at the moment. I just have one.
Yeah.
Quickly, I will ask you.
Yeah.
If I have in Azure, let's say, if I upload my small database, let's say a list of some words or something that I might use in my work, for example, can I
Okay.
build my own AI chat that will be fit with my own data set in Azure?
Yes, yes, of course. For example, if you have a data in the CSV format or Excel format, whatever the data file, okay, extension file, okay. If you have the data, for example, assume that your data belongs to our today's session, okay. Today's session we have the different speakers, different concepts, so different. So you need to train the one chat model. For example, Pratap will, for example, you can ask, or you have to train the model. You have to everything that will be happen in the Azure AI Studio. For example, you have to ask the AI chat. So which concept will the Pratap will discuss today? You just given the command like that. So they will automatically after the give you given just given the command after they will revert back like so Pratap will discuss about the Azure AI Studio. Elkhan will discuss about the bicep, and Salman will discuss about some concept. Like that only, they will discuss. They will create about your own data, about your data. So based on your data only, the AI will generate it. So you have to train your own model.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
possible. That's very good.
Yeah.
And for people
Yes.
like me that we are very new to
Yeah,
this
that's
topic,
why that
how can we start?
after the Build 2023 event that will be happening 2 months back. In the 2 months back, before that, OpenAI model. So Azure AI Studio. Before that, we call it as the OpenAI. So in that OpenAI model, we don't have that feature. After the Azure AI Studio will come to the user friendly to everyone. So everyone has to use that. You have in the own data, you have to use that own model. You have to create your own models according to your data. For example, whether that is the data in the, for example, we have the only limited version of data. For example, that will be in KBs. So we have the data in the metadata that will be in meta format. So we have every data, for example, from whether the data will be like from the minimal manner or the data will be in the maximum manner. So you have to make sure that we have to create your own chart according to your own data.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That sounds
So yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So thank you so much for this session. It's very insightful session today. I think we all learn a lot from you. Is there anything else you would like to share, or that's it?
Yeah, so is it so we have so in
Perfect.
my yeah, my friends also is there. So this is too late for me and also my friends. So they are went to sleep. That's why no one will join me with the session. So this is Azure. So I don't know exactly why I am choosing this Azure. This is very user friendly. Service. We have to play with Azure in the only with Azure AI only, Azure OpenAI only. So, for example, if you want to create one own image, for example, I want to create a Gira font, LATAM studio, like that. You just given the commands. They'll create some different visualizations. They create different images. They will give according to your commands only. They will create. So in the Azure is a God gift. I think we can say that God gift of you can create everything. So will God will create everything like that. In the Azure also, whatever the requirements we have, we just create like that only. This is like a
Okay.
God for all the services in the Azure.
You make
They
it
will
sound
create.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patra.
Yeah,
Thank you
especially
so much.
I'll thank to Elhan and you and Marina and Hugh Burana. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
No, we actually thank you for this because we know it's very late in where you are based at the moment. So you're putting all your effort and your time in this. So thank you so much. It was
Yeah,
really, really insightful.
yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Have a
I'm
great
going
day.
No, thank you, and you too. And before we go, I'm just gonna share my screen again, just to remind you, everybody, that there is more sessions today.
Yeah,
Not in English, it will be few more in Spanish. So there
yeah,
is still going on a lot of learning this week and the next week.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna keep this link to the website on the chat, and also, as you mentioned, Pratap, if you can share your details and your social media on the chat, that would be great. I know we have your details also
Yeah, definitely.
on
Yeah,
the
after the session, so it is too late for me. So tomorrow, I definitely can post it on the social
website.
media. And definitely I can
Yeah,
publish and our Jira. Yeah,
today you can have a go and sleep.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. See
yeah,
you. And
yeah.
until next time, keep sharing your
Yeah.
knowledge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.